Hey, this is Stuchu, and this time I'm going to be talking about Overwatch, not with Volamel, but this time un, with once an Overwatch content creator, now turned analyst, much like many of the other Overwatch content creators. Rest in peace to all of them. I have somehow written more articles than the rest of them, and I'm not even like whatever.
Have you really?
Probably like I've written like three, which is more than what you've done, right?
Overwatch articles?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. Basically, because everybody else is too busy doing other things, like getting paid by teams, and so for those who don't know, Elbion used to write for Esports. Now he has lived the better life and has moved on to EnVision Esports as an analyst, right?
Live
And for those
the
who don't,
actually getting paid life.
yeah, getting paid life, which is much better than not getting paid life. Listen, we all can't like live the life I did, which was like real for like 3 years for no pay. But I'm fucking crazy. I'm not a normal person. Anybody's read my articles could probably guess that. So, also for those who don't know, EnVision Esports is a top four. Looks like, unless Wikipedia is like lying to me, top four in NA Contenders. So,
Yeah, we just got second place seed in our group out of the regular season, and tomorrow, from when we're recording this, we play XL2, so new NYXL's Contenders team.
so you get the shot at Flower. Okay.
Yeah, we do. That's all we have to do. Just beat Flower,
Yeah, actually, the real trick is to kill everybody in front of him first, and then just solo him 6v1.
Yeah, but the problem is they have Nene with him now.
Okay, so it's actually a 6v2.
Koreans. Yeah, it's 6v2.
Too many of these Koreans. It's not right. So, I guess we'll talk about his job first, because I think that's an interesting thing. I don't know if I've ever talked to an analyst straight up from a team. So, what is it you do in your team?
So within my team, there is a relatively well thought out staff structure. We do have a head coach. We have Rufflegator, who is probably best known for his time with Fnatic, where when he was with Fnatic, Fnatic went to Apex and they played. I forget which DreamHack it was, but they played the DreamHack against Misfits, and like that Fnatic roster like beat Rogue like when they were on their hot streak. So like it was he's pretty well known for that time there. And then the assistant coach is this guy Chu. Chu isn't super well known, but Chu's been with EnVision for a little bit over a year now. So he's been around. He knows especially the core roster that returned. And then I am the analyst. So my job mostly revolves around scouting our upcoming opponents. Just watching through the VOD, recording down comps they're playing. Different strategies that I notice, any tendencies we can pick up on. As well as going through our own scrim VODs and giving my players statistics about themselves.
Statistics?
Yeah, so stuff like very painfully going through point of view VODs of my Devo player and recording every single time he uses defense matrix and what he's blocking, who he's protecting, stuff like that, just to give them like a better picture of what exactly they're doing. Sometimes the statistics about comms and recording every time they open their damn mouth and saying, this is what you told us, and like only this percentage of time do you have like a location call when you call a target, right? Or something to help them improve.
Right.
So very painstaking stuff, but it's very similar to what I did to create a lot of my articles. It's recording tendencies, and then previously I would then write an article with whatever tendencies I saw, but these days I just tell my players, so it works out.
Yeah. All right. So that's a lot to unpack. I guess I'll go back to the beginning. So basically, it sounds like Raffle Gator is like the wizard of EnVision Esports, and you are his slave a bit. Like
a little bit, Yeah.
Right.
It's Rufflegator is kind of more responsible for overseeing macro seems like a poor word to use, but like the team as a whole.
Okay, so basically he's more thinking about the team color, the team strategy, and you are more focused on the minute details of each particular player.
Yeah. Some kind of that's kind of how it works out. And then Chu, the assistant coach, is kind of somewhere in the middle. He does, he kind of sits on a lot of he kind of talks with me about a lot of my stuff, and he talks to Rufflegator a lot about his stuff. and we all work together. And when we're deciding kind of about the team color and stuff, Rufflegator will consult with Chu and I before we end up talking with the players. And of course, we have to talk with the players as well. We have to make sure that it makes sense to them. And a lot of the time, they'll give us feedback that we go, "Oh, yeah, that makes more sense," and then we, change our plan. Yeah. So it's kind of a give and take, but generally speaking, yeah, that's kind of how more the structure works.
Okay, all right. And here's an interesting bit, I guess, because generally when you're talking about players, it's pretty hard to get them to learn something in my view. So obviously that's actually why you had
wrong.
That's actually obviously I think why you had to do like all these video edits or whatever. Because if you actually just told them straight up, that would never work out, I think, in my opinion.
It depends on the player. And in my experience with EnVision, some players responded very well to a simple, send them a PM during scrims. Like, hey, I see you're doing this a bunch. Let's not do that, or let's keep doing that. And I know, especially with the going into this season, we rebuilt the roster, right? Because we lost a bunch of players. So the returning core has a really good personal connection with Chu. Yeah. So I know Chu can get away with a lot of that with some of the returning players because they've built up a lot of trust. But for Rufflegator and I, with some of the players who came in more recently, it takes a little bit more proof sometimes, right?
Yes.
Giving them those numbers, and then they go, okay, and then they'll concede.
Yeah, giving them numbers, giving them 20 examples, showing how each example worked into the exact same overall pattern. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Using shadow play to clip 5 different examples from scrims or something of them doing X, and then that's what it takes.
Yeah.
But if a player doesn't agree with us, they never do it out of spite. If they did, that'd be completely horrible. They just go, yeah, I don't think that, because in their head they're like, no, I would do that right. So sometimes we have to kind of show them, hey, ooh.
Yeah. So you're more guiding them along the path. Okay.
Yeah.
So what was I going to? Okay, right. Here was what I was going to ask is, you're part of the NA Contenders League, and I did write an article about this saying, basically, it doesn't seem like there's actually a very good reason to have a Contenders team right now, just because of the way the contracts kind of work out, where it's you don't get any kind of negotiating power.
Yeah. And you mean from the org side?
From the org side. I'm not talking about for teams, because listen, if you're actually just a player, if you're a coach or whatever, you just want to win, just want to compete, and this is the only game, right? So.
Yeah, it's the only way to really have a consistent year-round league for us to show off. Yeah, we could just play in third-party stuff.
But that would never work. First, that would never work because we don't even know if that exists yet. So that's a really ridiculous sort of gamble.
From my understanding, Blizzard has loosened the restrictions on that a little bit, because before this season's Contenders, we played in 2 third-party tournaments. I mean, they're online. They're not LANs.
Yeah.
So, take that with a grain of salt. But we did play in a couple. And in 2018, as far as I know, it's loosened up. But for the last month and a half, nobody's going to run anything because all of the good teams are really focused on Contenders.
Yeah.
But from the org side...
if you don't want to talk about it, it's fine. We can just skip.
No. From my org, it's very different because we are, an independent org. We're not an academy team, right? We are not affiliated with an Overwatch League.
So it's actually you versus the entire empire of Optic, as far as I know. GGEA, basically, whatever it's called. I'm pretty sure it's Optic's sub legion of Contenders farms.
It's more like us versus the teams that Alec has built.
Yeah.
Because Alec has built 4 or 5 of the academy rosters, something like that.
Yeah,
it was pretty ridiculous, but. No, for the academy teams, it actually makes a lot of sense. I think if you have an academy roster that is of the same nationality of players that you were going with for your team, because if you transfer a player within org, you don't have to pay that buyout fee.
Yeah, that's
right?
True.
So if you have a player who, for example, is just too young, like Flower on XL2. You can just put him there, let him practice with the team, practice with a team, just keep playing, kind of keep up his, make sure no rust grows almost to say.
Make sure he stays happy because, listen, it's you don't want to be stuck in a team and not play, basically. for a year.
Yeah. So you put him on that roster, and then you just promise this guy like, hey, when you're old enough, you will come up to the to the Overwatch League roster. You're just here because you're too young.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in that example, it makes a lot of sense. And if XL2 had more Korean players, I think it would make a lot of sense for them to be using that team. And the same for how NRG is using. San Francisco Shock is using NRG in NA Contenders, where
Same
they have
thing,
players that
yes.
are Western players, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like potentially you can move them up pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
So in that instance, I actually think it makes sense for the academy teams.
Yeah,
100%. Where it gets difficult is for teams like us,
right,
where we don't have an Overwatch League slot to just like promise our players. I mean, don't get me wrong, EnVision is looking to move into the Overwatch League for season 2, but we don't have that guaranteed by any means. So if an Overwatch League team came to one of our players and just said, "Hey, we want to sign you," and our player said yes, we lose that player.
Yeah. Like there's nothing you do is like you can't even get like a better buyout or anything, right?
No, the buyout clause is predetermined
strict
by Blizzard.
Yeah.
We were required to update all of the players' contracts with the clauses that Blizzard had in the official rules for Contenders.
Yeah.
So
because basically that was my biggest contention is like if you're an independent team, it doesn't make much sense just because listen, there's that part, but there's also the part where like you think about pre Overwatch League, like there were a bunch of teams that looked like they could have been in Overwatch League but were kicked out. Fnatic, Rogue, and they had shown and still show in other esports like a lot of strength as an org in terms of financial backing and all that, but like that doesn't really matter, it seemed like. So it feels like there's this like weird precedence where like you can compete in Contenders, but I'm not sure how much that puts you in Blizzard's good books or not. Like I feel like I don't know what exactly they're looking for, so it's a bit of a complicated situation.
Yeah, your guess is as good as mine as to what Blizzard wants from the org. But it makes it very difficult because you got to think about how many teams, and when I think about kind of how Contenders works right now, I kind of think about how like the challenger scene used to work in League of Legends. Where you get some of these rosters that are like fantastic rosters as a team, right?
Yeah.
But it's like really what it is. It's like there's like 2 or 3 players that like make that team, and it's so easy for the Overwatch League to just go like, oh, these 2 players aren't complete crap. Let's just take them, and then that roster might just fall apart, and it might never be kind of what it could have been as a unit. So
okay, I was going to talk about this later, but this is actually one of my theoretical questions. So basically, the first time we talked about Overwatch League, I think it was like the Dota 2 podcast or something. I forget.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I was asking you a bunch of questions, and one of them is actually like the question of where this particular game would slide on the team scale to individual scale, and even though a lot of people keep telling me like, no, you gotta listen to me, this is like a team-oriented game, and like the entire strategy matters, it seems to me it's actually more like a 50-50 split. Like basically the way you described it is the way I'm thinking of it recently, where it's like you have like 4 to 5 players be part of this like very strict team structure, but all of that is just to make space for this like for the last 1 to 2 players to kill everybody. Like that's how I've been seeing it recently. I don't know if that's true. What do you think?
I would say maybe somewhere more in the 60-40, 60% team aspect.
Yeah, 60%. Okay.
Because I think there is a huge amount of space for especially in the most recent metas for individual players to just like kick ass. You get an insane Widowmaker player, that player can just win you a map. Like that just happens. Tracer players can just win you maps. Zenyatta players can just win you maps.
Jonak can just win you a league.
Yeah, Jonak can just win you the league. And I think in the current meta that Overwatch League is on that patch, a better Sombra player can just win you maps. And I think there's a lot of room for individual playmakers and for definitely, like you said, for a team to work around a star and like kind of set them up to carry. But I also think that you don't even have to have a star player in like a traditional carry role, right? You could have a star tank player who, in a very similar sense to some other games, makes just by making more space and just by being a better tank player can allow maybe weaker DPS to shine, right?
Yeah.
To look better than they are because they have just so much more space to do damage.
Yeah, Fisher.
Fisher is a good example, yeah. And I think it's more so the individual aspect of the game is honestly it's a little bit less so about playing around the strengths of a player. It's more, I think, that you have to play the team aspect to cover weaknesses of heroes. Is the way that I see it.
Okay.
Like, and like the easiest example is one that's existed for a long time in Overwatch now, and it's protecting your Zenyatta. Zenyatta is a broken hero. Discord Orb is just stupid, and he does way too much damage even without Discord Orb. But he's also easy as hell to kill because he just walks around, super slowly. He's very vulnerable, and his only protection is killing people. But when you get multiple players on him or, defense matrix in his face, he can't do anything. So many teams have to adapt the style where even if you don't have that all-star Zenyatta player, you still have to protect your Zenyatta. You have to put him in a position where he's, a mile away from the enemy, or you have to have your D.Va with him and your Lucio with him to keep him alive. Because Discord Orb, regardless of whether or not you have a strong, fragging Zenyatta, is just too powerful. You just have to have that ability on the map. And I think the team aspect is more about working around the weaknesses of heroes, actually, and making sure that you can get kind of the term that we've kind of come to use is on EnVision is just make sure you're getting value out of the hero. Make sure the hero is like contributing to the map, even if it's maybe, your Zenyatta is maybe contributing less than their Zenyatta, you still need your Zenyatta to contribute something.
Yeah, okay. It makes sense. And then there's obviously like an exceptional case in like Jonak where you're not just like building the team, you're actually like building an altar to a player in a sense.
Yeah. There's always going to be exceptions, I think, for exceptionally skilled players.
Yeah.
But there's only one Jonak.
Yeah, as we've seen, other teams have tried, they failed. Doesn't quite work out. Okay.
No.
All right. So basically, I think I've got a bit of that. So I guess we'll go back to NA Contenders. So tell me about this league because you've been playing in it or your team has been playing in it for like a month now.
Yeah, we just finished week 5. We're about to start week 6, which is gonna be the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
So it's been a while.
Right.
Like
basically, I guess I'll frame it this way. What do you think are the best teams? Just like top 4.
Okay. Top 4 right now. Number 1 is probably TO. Number 2, I'm gonna say is Fusion University. Number 3 is Gladiators Legion. And then I'm gonna say we're probably 4th right now.
Okay.
In my eyes. And TO kind of takes the cake right now because TO has effectively defined the style that everyone plays in North American Contenders right now.
Right.
By just being the best at it. And it's partially because they have the players who are like perfectly suited for it. And kind of their style is you remove the Tracer player and the Winston player, your Winston and your Tracer player, kind of from the equation when it comes to like mid-fight trading. Like they just don't exist, and you're basically kind of like poking 4v6. And basically what happens is you have your Genji player or your D.Va player sitting on the objective. This is mostly on payload type maps.
Okay.
They just sit on the cart with Harmony Orb on them, and all they're doing is like looking at where the enemy is coming from. And basically once the team that's trying to get back to the cart, either defending or attacking, hits kind of a certain area of the map, or they, meet some conditions and Yada's in a certain position or whatever, the Tracer and Winston player come out of the hiding spots they're in and just kill that person. And because Winston and Tracer are 2 of the more mobile, Tracer's the most, Winston's far more mobile than D.Va, heroes in the game, they just get out. And it's really frustrating to play against because just you will lose your support players just over and over and over and over and over again. And they just get farmed, and you're constantly at a man disadvantage. So you have to spend a lot of time like flushing out the hiding players, taking, sending your Tracer player to go find where they are and pushing them out. And it just wastes a lot of time on payload maps.
Yeah.
And Toronto has really defined that style in a lot of ways for kind of NA contenders, and how people play, either try to mimic the style or have tried to build counter styles to it. And Fusion was the first team to really play that style, because in the third-party tournaments that we played coming into the league, the first time we played Fusion, we got completely fucking smashed. We got 3-0'd, and wasn't even a close 3-0. We got fucking smashed because we were not ready to play against that style. It was just this most bizarre thing where every time we walked into the cart, we're like, wait, it's just who are you? That's all we can see. What is going on? What do we do? And it was this moment of we legitimately don't know what to do, because it's you can't hard engage the Genji.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to deflect. He's going to dash out. And then you just get collapsed on by everybody. And Fusion does it to the extreme. They hide everybody but who are you or Kraken Lacken. They rotate who's on cart, or they used to. They either have Diva or Genji on the cart, and then everybody else would be hiding. And you just don't know what to do. So they were the first ones that I really noticed to start doing that. And then the second time we played them was in the grand finals of that tournament, and it went 4-3. We lost, but it went the distance, full 7 maps. So it was pretty clear that we kind of figured it out a little bit better. But they're also very good at the style. And then third place is going to be GLA for me. Mm-hmm. And GLA is one of the teams that figured out very well a counter strat to that hiding style. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that Blase, one of their DPS players, still basically only plays Junkrat. And it's really frustrating, but he still does it, and he's very good at it, don't get me wrong. But just having the mines there to disrupt the Tracer, disrupt the Winston, and the fact that he just farms Tire so hard, it's whenever they get jumped on, you just get tired, and people just die. So they do a very good job about doing that, as well as their supports just sit insanely far away from the fight. You'll be fighting at the on Hollywood in the streets phase of the map, the second
mm-hmm.
phase.
Yeah.
You'll be fighting next to the jail, and in between the jail and the saloon is where the cart is. And Rolf will be still sitting at the archway by first point. Okay. Just with a harmony orb on somebody in a Discord, just kind of chucking orbs, but he's not dying, right?
Yeah.
So they developed kind of a counter style to it, and it's a similar style to what XL2 has started playing, where they play a lot of Mercy Zenyatta, and they pocket their carries, they pocket Flower on McCree, or they pocket their Junkrat player or something, and they just make it as difficult as possible to dive them. So that's kind of the counter style that's evolved. And then we mix it up depending on the map. We play both styles a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of where I'd put it, and the reasons why I'd put him there.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, it sounds to me like, at least in Contenders, guerrilla style warfare, it has trumped the old school of fight everybody fight on the cart.
Yeah, and it's in large part due to the fact that Contenders right from the get-go was on the Sombra patch.
Okay.
Where her translocator used to only last 15 seconds on the ground before you could go back to it. Now it lasts 20. So the Sombra player has just forever to mess around in your backline before she can just get out for free. As well as they reduced the time it took to hack somebody. Mm-hmm. And they made it more of a DPS. They lowered her weapon spread so she does more damage, effectively does more damage, but she doesn't get EMP charge from healing people with health packs anymore. Yeah. So she's a DPS, not a support now. But because we were on that patch, what happened really early on is that the better Sombra teams, when they just went in for these 6v6, the better Sombra would just get more hacks off and get more EMPs off, and you just win. So, and it was really punishing for dive teams, because if the Sombra peeled, the Winston would jump in and just get hacked, and then he couldn't bubble, he couldn't jump out. The Tracer player would lose all her mobility and just die. So this kind of hiding style evolved from that.
Yes.
To the extent where everybody does it now, because you have to. Or you have to play the Junkrat, and when the Sombra comes in, you just mine her immediately, so she has to recall out. And So this style kind of evolved to work around Sombra, and people have kept that style. We anticipate have kept that style because now tomorrow on Sunday, it's going to be a new patch.
Yeah.
We are on the Sombra nerf patch now. So, yeah.
Okay, so the style's going to be the same anyway, you think?
I just think it's going to be the same because, I mean, we played on Tuesday, so we played whatever it was 4 days ago, and we're going to play tomorrow. There's so little time for people to completely learn a new style. It's a new patch, but nobody's going to completely 180 their style, in my opinion, and be successful at it.
Yeah. Takes some time, usually.
Yeah. A lot of teams are returning to traditional Genji Tracer Dive because it's something that they've played for so long. They still know how to do it at a core level. And I think the teams that are going to benefit the most from the Sombra nerf is the teams that played the hiding style. Well, actually, both teams really benefit from it because Sombra did pretty well still against both because you could punish the people who hide with Sombra, and when they played the like protected Junkrat, protected McCree, kind of like Death Ball, EMP was still really good against that. So every style kind of benefits because Sombra was really oppressive. But yeah, it'll be interesting going into this next patch. We're kind of going in a little bit blind because we're going to be the first competitive matches on this patch in the world. So who knows? We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, who knows? Okay. This style does kind of remind me of, if you've ever watched Dota, it's called like the Rat Dota.
We call the hiding players rats.
Yeah.
And it kind of started. Was it? I can't remember who it was, but we had a Tracer player who we were playing against in scrims one day, who it did not matter what his team was doing, he was always on our back line. It didn't matter. He would always be on our back line, and he would do it by he would just sit in a corner and just hope that we didn't like 180 in a room and like find him. And if we didn't do that, he got a free path to our Zenyatta because our Zen would be like, okay, my tanks walked through this area, it's safe, right?
Yeah.
But then he just died. And then our Zenyatta player, Crimzo, just every time the Tracer would be on him, he just started yelling, there's a rat on me. So we just ended up evolving and calling it rats.
Yeah, it's actually, that story is actually very similar to how the term was called Rat Dota in Dota 2. Basically, it's basically the exact same style you're thinking of. Is like, okay, so this in the old days, it used to be like, oh, 5v5, and then the glorious team that's much better will win out on top, and then eventually the team that was losing was like, wait a second, this game is supposed to be about killing the throne. It's not supposed to be a fight. Who wins a team fight? So what they did was like they'd split off, be like 4v1 or like 4v5 or 3v5, and then the last two players would go on the other side of the map, and like they would get heroes that would specifically just kill creeps and buildings super fast.
Okay.
And then they would just drive down the lane, and then so the other four players are distracting them the entire time, and then right after they're obviously going to lose a team fight, but they just do enough damage that the opposing team can't keep pushing. And then by the time they're done, they're like, wait a second, we've lost our entire base, and now they have like mega creeps up or super creeps up, and then famously like it was against a team. It was against Fnatic, I think. It was like a very old Fnatic with no tail and fly, and it was against I think it was a CIS team. And they're like, and they famously said something like goddamn rats, why do you it's like, because basically they had this very funny analogy. It's like I was sailing this ship, but then these rats kept attacking my hold, and then we got flooded, and then we died. Why won't these rats come out and fight like men or something? And then that's why it became Rat Dota. Very similar to what's happening here.
Similar, yeah. You just don't take a straight up fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds like it would be a surprisingly individual play style, but it's a surprisingly, within Overwatch at least, it's a surprisingly team-focused style. Because everyone has to play different. You know, the people who are sitting on cart have to have different limits. Your supports have to play super safe, and it's really comm heavy. You have to constantly be telling the people who are hiding where the enemy is when you know where they are, because they have to know when to come out of hiding. Because when they're hiding, they don't see shit.
Yeah, and
It's not like a MOBA where you can still look at the mini map.
Yeah,
right?
there is no mini map, so it's
Yeah.
very. So it actually does require a lot of team communication.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, a lot of synergy. I just thought it's really funny. Basically, Rat Dota
Yeah,
has
it's
come into Overwatch.
pretty much. Pretty much.
All right, so here's another question about NA contenders, because it's not like this. It's not like this list is gonna be definitive. Like it could change in 2 months. Maybe you guys could be the best. Who knows? But who do you think are the like 3 best players in contenders right now? Just off of the form in contenders, not we're not talking about like pure potential. Because if we're talking like pure potential, I'm pretty sure Flower would just top the list immediately.
Flower would top the list, obviously. Well, let's see. Three best players right now in contenders.
Obviously, just an NA. So
yeah, it sounds.
Or is it just too hard? Like
no. I was gonna say it sounds like I'm favoring my own players when I say this. But Jaru, one of our DPS players, our flex DPS player, was one of the best players in contenders, and this is something that I am really confident that other players would concede the point to, is that this season of contenders, Sombra has been so important, and Jaru was just the best Sombra. He wasn't the best Genji this season because he put so much time into Sombra. Yeah. Like last season in contenders when he was top 2 Genji in North America. But this season he was simply the best Sombra. Like I don't care how you measure it. If you can measure hacks done, EMPs, hit, damage done. I don't really care what you do. Even, kind of harder to quantify like map pressure stuff. Jaru was the best Sombra. He just was. And that's a big reason why I think we did pretty well. Obviously, maybe not as well as we wanted. We want to be first seed, of course. But Jaru was just, it was incredible. Because since I've joined EnVision, I've watched Jaru be a Genji main, be a Tracer main, be a Sombra main, and every time he swaps to a new hero, it takes him a couple weeks, don't get me wrong, but after a couple weeks, he just starts nailing it. He just gets it, and he's able to transition between heroes, which is why I think Jaru in his career is going to be a really meta-proof player. And in terms of potential, I still think he's got a long way to go. I mean, the kid's 17, he's still really young.
Yeah.
So I think he's got a lot of room to grow there. Support players, it's pretty hard to argue against Alarm from Fusion University, I think. They're flex support player, previously of, I want to say Lunatic High. I should know that.
Oh, yeah, it's Lunatic High.
Was it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Lunatic High. Obviously not like the Lunatic High that won everything, but he was on... because he was on that's right. He was on Lunatic High 2, and after Lunatic High became Soul Dynasty, he went to the A roster, and then now he's on Fusion University. The dude's pretty insane. He frags really hard on Zenyatta. This is his meta for sure. If the meta ever goes to whatever, something else for flex support, Ana or something, he might not be as amazing. But this season, current form, the dude's insane. He's just absurd. And he really has outshone most other supports, because while other support players have figured out the style that they need to play really well in this meta, like Rolf on GLA, Alarm just does it a little bit better. He gets off so much damage. He's really safe. So it's hard to dive him. Speaking from experience playing against him in our group and playing against Fusion in other tournaments, Alarm is so difficult to kill because he's just a million miles away. So it takes so much time to try to get to him, and you take so much damage in the process. So Alarm, I think, is up there as well. And then I'm trying to think of a tank player who I would say. Oh, Panker.
Okay.
Main tank. Dude's just crazy. It's impossible to kill Panker. It is absolutely impossible to kill Panker. He doesn't seem to matter kind of what he does. And I've seen so many people on Reddit give gods a lot of the credit for Panker being so difficult to kill.
Mm-hmm.
His Gods, of course, plays diva alongside Panker.
Yeah.
And Gods is not a bad diva. Do not get me wrong. He's a pretty good diva player, but Panker is just insane. Because we started playing against Panker when he was still on Toronto, like in 2017, and he did the exact same thing with a much worse diva player. Panker is just absurd.
Mm-hmm.
He gets in, he creates so much space, he charges an insane amount of primal rages, and with the like really short jump cooldown on primal rage, he is just all over your team, and he's so good at like LOSing your DPS while knocking your supports back and just doing all sorts of crazy stuff.
Okay.
So
yeah.
Those would probably be my 3 probably.
Okay. All right. Well, we could talk about NA Contenders again some other time, because basically we're only like a third way through. So maybe we'll do another episode or something when it's all over, or when your team has been bought out by NRG or something. Who knows? Listen, it's a dangerous field out there in NA Contenders to be an independent team.
I don't want to join NRG, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, nobody.
NRG, it just has that name, and I just can't help but think of all of the
failures,
all of the failures besides Rocket League, basically.
And the fact that they almost lost to Dragons, and
almost lost to the Dragons.
Like they've got problems.
Yeah,
but they do have money. They just have problems.
They have money. They do have money. Yeah.
So, all right, and I guess we'll go to the other contenders. Contenders Korea. Have you watched?
Yeah, the only other the contenders that matters. Just kidding. It's the only other contenders that I watch. Because it shouldn't really be a surprise to anybody watching. Korean Contenders is the best contenders region. It just is. The level of play is the highest. And I watch Korea before that reason, and then I watch North America because I have to for my job. And then I watch Overwatch League, and then I run out of time, basically.
Yeah.
So Korea, what do you want to know about Korea?
Okay, so basically there have been, as far as I know, there have been 2 teams that have like. The first obviously was Runaway, because they were the ones left behind from Overwatch League. But now everybody's telling me Element Mystic, this is the real team. This is the real deal. If if they were in Overwatch League today, they'd be one of the best teams. That's what people are saying.
Ooh.
Top 5 team?
Yeah. I would definitely say playoffs team.
Yeah. So
I think you could put them into Pacific or Atlantic, and I think they would be a playoffs team.
Yeah.
But I don't know about. Well, I guess that does make them one of the top.
Yeah, that makes them one of the best teams. But
yeah, I don't know if they would be the best. I think that's a bit of a stretch, because we also have to consider like who they're up against.
Yeah.
Because like the best team besides them in their group that they've had to face, probably X6, and X6 like lost Architect.
Yeah.
Although, actually, I think Architect still played in that series. I can't remember, actually. Because when they played, it was a while ago now.
Yeah.
They played early on, so Architect might have still been there, actually. But Elo Mystic is good, yeah. They were really successful in the final season of Apex Challengers. I do believe they won it. I want to double-check that. Yeah, they ended up taking first place. And because in the first round robin of Apex Challengers, they did okay. But like over the course of the season, they really improved, because the first round robin, they took 3rd. Yeah, that's right. I just want to double check that. They took 3rd, and then they ended up winning the final round robin, and quite convincingly, actually. They completely swept the final round robin 5-0, and the closest teams were Lunatic High 2 and 7 at 3-2. Oh, and Bond Spirit Gaming, who nobody remembers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, EM's, they're a good team for sure. They have a lot going for them, in terms of just like kind of pure up and coming talent. It feels like, and they seem to have a really good grasp on how to play Sombra as well. So
okay, right. So do they have a specific team color, or are they just like, well, this team's pretty standard, but they're really good?
Well, all of the top teams in Korea have a fairly similar team color right now.
Yeah.
And it is a very heavy death ball style, and it's a style that is pretty quickly creeping into NA. We've done a lot of it. It's no secret. We've done a lot of it. ZP, for whatever reason, keeps telling us to stop playing Sombra. ZP on air keeps saying like Jaru's in Sombra jail. He keeps complaining that we play Sombra. He's even gone so far as to like message Rafflegator saying stop playing Sombra. And it's just like, ZP, fuck off. We're playing Sombra because Sombra is OP. I don't care that you don't see it. And Korea is playing a Moira Sombra style. So you play Winston Diva because Winston Diva are the best tanks, just like they just are. And then you play Sombra Tracer because Tracer is overpowered as well, and Sombra is overpowered. And then you play Lucio Moira. And basically the idea is you just have the maximum amount of AoE heals. Everyone is mobile, so nobody is a dive target at any given time. And you just sit as a clump, though. And you just sit as a death ball. And the idea is that Moira can then heal everybody. And Sombra doesn't even have to look for hacks. And this is the thing that, like, makes the changes to Sombra really overpowered. It's the fact that they increase her effective damage by so much. And all Sombra does is just sit in the face of the enemy tanks because she's standing right next to her tanks with Lucio and Moira healing her, and just holds left click on their faces and just builds EMP in like 40 seconds.
Wow.
And so all you do is you just build EMP and build Coalescence, Moira's laser, and you just win. That's all it is. You just sit there and you just like run into the enemy team, build ultimates way faster than they ever will, and win. So the counter, as is in Overwatch, the counter to this is to play the same thing yourself, but do it better. And that's one of the things that has happened a lot in Overwatch because there is, in my opinion, because, you know, you're able to mirror heroes. A lot of times it's like, oh, we're just going to match their strength with the same strength. And it ends up working. That's where we kind of end up with like teams playing the same thing all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. It's especially on King of the Hill maps. It
sounds a really strong King of the Hill maps.
Yeah. On King of the Hill, and what happens now in Korea on a lot of King of the Hill maps is both teams will do the same thing. They just run into each other with Moira Sombra, and basically whoever gets these incremental leads, whoever builds EMP first, just kind of wins. So it's a really like tight play style when you get these mirror matchups, and I kind of like it because it gets into the kind of nitty gritty of how you play it out very specifically. And it's this ridiculous style where Sombras don't use stealth really.
Yeah.
They throw translocator back so they can be safe, but most of the time they leave all their cooldowns up. They go for hacks if they can, especially into Diva, to deny defense matrix, but mostly they're just holding left click building EMP. And it's absurd how much damage the Sombra gets off when you do it properly. And it's a style that is starting to bleed over into Overwatch League a little bit, but it's definitely come over to NA Contenders where you just sack the Zenyatta and take the Moira because it makes your tanks just immortal because her left click when she heals people is 80 health per second.
Yeah.
80. That's insane because Zenyatta Orb is 30, Mercy Beam is 50. So you get Mercy Beam and Zenyatta Orb, but on everybody in front of her. It's just ridiculous. So she puts out just a crazy amount of HPS, like in healing. So just nobody dies, and you can't dive Moira because she just fades away. And then when she does damage with her right click, she heals herself. So it's impossible for Tracer to 1v1 Moira. Not impossible, but very difficult. And you just can't jump her as a team because the second your Winston Diva commit jump cooldowns on the Moira, she fades away. And then while you're like looking for the Moira, you get hacked and then you die.
Okay. And
it's a pretty ridiculous style. It's really good. And it's a style that we adopted pretty heavily. And I would say that we were the first to adopt it in NA Contenders, like at least seriously fully commit to playing this deathball style. And we didn't show it off right away because we played bye week.
Yeah.
Like we figured we played the series against NRG and we lost that series. That was a really bad series from us. It wasn't even like NRG was like insanely better than us. It's like we fucking sucked in that series. That's really what it was. Yeah. And like our comms fell apart, everything fell apart, and we kind of went back to the drawing board. And there was that moment of like, you know, let's like watch some Korean Contenders VODs and kind of get an idea of what they're doing, right? So we watched it over as a team, and it was something that I had noticed they were playing more Sombra a lot, but I hadn't quite figured it out myself. But watching it with my players, this is where it's amazing to have a team more brains with you, right?
Yeah.
Jaru noticed, he was like, wait, like these Sombras always have all their cooldowns up. What the hell is going on? And then we kind of realized that, and this was like before everyone was playing it in Korea when we noticed it. So it would be like one team was just like smashing into the other, and we're just like, oh, they're like diving, but as a death ball. But then once the mirror came in, we're like, oh my God, we could really clearly see the style. So we practiced it a whole bunch. We didn't play it against bye week.
Clearly, free win. Why would you?
Why the fuck would we show it, right? So we pulled it out against Optic.
Yeah.
That was a very close series as well. Went to the 5th map, and it definitely helped us against Optic. So it's a style that we played a lot, but now that Sombra's been nerfed, it's not very good. Because just losing hack is, as much as that style didn't play around hack, losing the ability to hack if you take damage is still it's still an enormous deal. Okay. So the style's not as good anymore. So.
Yeah, but I just think it's pretty funny because basically the way you've described both Contenders League, like any Contenders, like, okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to this Strat Dota, we're gonna reinvent the American Revolution, go to that guerrilla style warfare, and then
you're not wrong,
right? And then the Koreans are like, listen, where did we come from? We came from StarCraft 2. It's like, okay, let's go for this good old fashioned death ball, this Protoss style, fuck them up, right? Yep. So I just think that's pretty funny.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So we're definitely gonna have to do another episode because by the time this one's over, like the meta will have already changed.
Because playoffs is a new patch.
Yeah. So new patch, and I think Contenders itself, at least for Korea, should still be going on for at least another month. So things will change. Things will change. Yeah, because
Korea started later than us, so I think they have one more week of the regular season, and then they still have to do their playoffs. And I think they're playing their own playoffs because NA and EU are playing. So all of the quarterfinals are going to be online for us and for EU, as far as I know. Korean Contenders is all played in a studio. Crazy, and we play all of it online. But our quarterfinals are still online, and then the semifinals and finals and the third place match are all going to be on LAN. But the LAN for us, I'm assuming it's the same LAN for Europe, because we were told that if we make semifinals, we're going to Poland.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it's the same, event like they did last year for Contenders, except it was in Los Angeles. Yeah. But now it's going to be in Poland. But I think Korea is going to be doing their own thing. I hope they do, because
Korea should always do their own thing. Like,
yes,
they clearly know what the fuck they're doing, at least when it comes to the esports tournaments and making them. So basically, now we talked in NA Contenders about like the best teams, the best players. But now it's time to talk about the best players in NA Korea. And this time you have to really sell it, because you're not only talking about like the best players, but you're also basically telling the teams above you which other players to buy, so they don't buy out your players.
So they don't buy out my players. Yeah, exactly.
Because listen, they all love them Koreans. Because as far as I can tell, like just like the culture around the Overwatch League teams is like, yes, we could do all those analytics. We could watch all those VODs. We could figure out who are the best players on the cheap, or we could just get another Korean.
Yeah, I think we were one of the few teams without a Korean.
Yeah.
The only other ones were like Mayhem, and then Grizzlies, Last Night's Leftovers, and Bye Week.
Yeah.
So it was the three like absolute worst teams in NA Contenders had no Koreans.
Yeah.
And then Mayhem didn't have a Korean.
Yeah.
But everybody else has Korean. So we're the only like top team that doesn't have a Korean. We're the
think about that. That's why you got to be quick. You got to be selling these Koreans real fast.
Yeah. So I think a standout player for Korean Contenders this season has been Guard from Elbion Mystic, because he's been pretty good at Sombra. And when everyone's playing Sombra, the better Sombra player really does just win, because if you can get to the point where you're cycling like 1.5 to 2 EMPs for every EMP that the enemy's getting off, like you're just gonna win more fights.
Yeah.
Because EMP like just wins fights. Because for a shooter that's as ability focused as Overwatch is with the whole ultimate thing, turning off everyone's abilities is pretty good. It turns out.
Yes. Turns out.
So. Turns out silence is a really good ability,
Yes.
Especially AoE silence.
Yeah.
It turns out AoE silence that also removes any character that has shields for whatever reason.
Rest in peace, Reinhardt. Yes.
Yeah, Reinhardt, but no, even Zenyatta. Zenyatta has the 50 health and 150 health in shields. He loses that shield.
Oh yeah, he does lose all the shields. All right.
So Zenyatta turns into a 50 health hero.
Yeah. So basically, he sneezes on him and he dies.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why Moira is better against Sombra, because she doesn't become a 50 health hero.
Yeah,
and Moira can heal herself by doing damage with her right click. So it's like, okay, like play Moira, and Moira has the ability to. She doesn't have to commit her ultimate to like dodge EMP. She can use her shift, right? She can fade out. So it's like Moira's pretty good. For this season, he's been a standout performer for sure. Guard is. Just because of the Sombra, but I think generally speaking from Elo Mystic, I still don't know if it's Sparky or Sparkle because he uses a 1. So I don't know if it's an I or an L. I actually still don't know that. If I listen to the casters, I might know, but I don't listen to the casters.
Yeah.
But he has been for a long time kind of been an up and coming talent, really good tracer player. I would seriously consider him. One of my personal favorites is Bazzi from Team 7. Bazzi was a flex support player previously. Like when I first like learned about 7 and first watched 7 in the it wasn't the open division back then. It was like the Road to Apex, I think. And it was an OGN put on effectively what the open division is now. Like you can play through all this stuff and make it into Apex Challengers, and if you win there, you can make it into Apex, right? And 7 played through all that stuff, and that's where I first saw them. And at the time, Bazzi was a flex support player. And he was a flex support player who, on attack, would just pick Widowmaker. And his team would just play triple DPS, solo Lucio, and it would be like Genji, Tracer, Winston, Diva, Lucio just dive, and he'd just sit in the back just shooting people in the head. And it was beautiful, and it just worked because he was so good at it.
Yeah.
And 7 had this weird style where Bazzi was their main flex support, but if they needed a hit scan, like if they wanted a McCree, he would then play DPS, and their projectile DPS player, Tuba, would then play Zenyatta. And Tuba was normally like a Genji Doomfist player. So they had this weird like role swap thing, but I think it worked out because they wouldn't like swap in the middle of a map. So you weren't like giving up a bunch of, ultimate charge. Like going into a map, they would decide, okay, this is who's doing this, and they just go with it. And they made it work. It was really cool. But Bazzi has now moved over to full-time DPS from flex support. He is now a pure hit scan player, plays Tracer, plays Widowmaker, and he's still pretty darn good. And I think he's a player who I think would be worth considering if I'm a Korean team or if I want a potential star Korean Tracer player. Because his Tracer has been quite good. Not insane, not the best, but he also backs it up with like an absurd Widowmaker. And I don't know if triple support becomes a thing. He can play Zenyatta. We know he can. Because there's like a bunch of highlight clips of Bazzi like using Zenyatta's right click to like shoot Faras out of the air at like extreme range, and it's like what is happening? And then, I mean, it sounds really dumb to say because everyone say it, but like just somebody fucking buy Runaway and bring them into Overwatch League. Still, like for fuck's sake, just bring Runaway in. I did not anticipate Runaway to do super well this season. I actually wrote an article. I put it on Medium just like because I was bored and I just did it. Kind of giving people a run through of Korean contenders heading into the season. Kind of giving some context about where the teams kind of were, so people had expectations, and that way people can realize that some of the expectations have been broken for sure. Especially teams like O2 or Jones has been a really big surprise to me, and MVP Space has shit the bed, and so is Kongyu Panthera.
Yes.
Although I should be used to Kongyu Panthera shitting the bed by now. I really should.
It's a special team.
Yeah, just like I should be used to Runaways pleasantly surprising me. But I didn't think they were going to do very well because like Cox had left the team, and he was a big deal why they were so good. Runner, of course, the famous, used to play Lucio, but it was kind of the emotional support behind the team, coach, owner, whatever he was. Left to do his military service, I believe.
Yeah.
So Flowervin, his wife, had kind of stepped into that role. She seems to be doing a good job. She always seems really excited when she's in the booth. But the team's just so good. Like, somebody just fucking bring Runaway into the Overwatch League. Although I think Hoxall... How old is Hoxall? No, he'll be old enough for Season 2.
Yeah. So you think...
Oh, yes. Because his birthday is October 7th.
Okay, yeah.
So by the time Season 2 comes around, he will be 18.
Okay, yeah.
So somebody bring him in.
But what if he's like the other Runaway guys? Like, I will never leave. This is my true home. Either all of us or none of us.
No, just take. Yeah, that's fine. I don't even care. Take the whole damn roster. That is fine with me. Like, that is perfect. Because going into the season, like when Cox had left, I was a little bit concerned because I was like, Twilight came in, and Twilight, for anyone who might remember, was previously the flex support for Conbox back when Gamsu was still on Conbox and all that. And Twilight was one of the early adopters of Sombra. So in my head, he filled a similar space to Cox, where he was like a very offensively focused support player. But I was concerned when he joined Runaway because we hadn't seen him since like Season 2 Apex. And a lot of the time when a player completely disappears from the scene and they don't have to go to military service and they don't have, they didn't retire or something, but they just disappear for like a year plus, I assume there's a reason why. Yes. Either they dropped off or maybe they're just a complete asshole,
Usually one of those two, yes.
Yeah, but Twilight came in and he's been doing pretty good. So just all of Runaway, just bring them in as a unit. I don't even care. Just take the whole team. Like, they will serve you well. If you are a prospective investor and you don't care about, well, actually, I take it back. NYXL has a huge fan base now in New York, apparently.
Yeah.
Regardless of the fact that it's a Korean team in a North American city, right? So just take Runaway. Runaway is a fan favorite of Overwatch fans already.
They already have like a pre-existing team culture,
they have a pre-existing team culture. They have a huge fan base in Korea. They have a huge fan base in North America. I'm assuming probably there's a fan base in Europe as well. So just buy Runaway.
Yeah, and like
bring Runner, bring Flowervin, just bring the whole damn thing, and it'll work. I promise you.
Not only that, it's like they don't have the Soul Dynasty problem. Like we'll talk about that later. Yeah. They don't have the Soul Dynasty problem of like we need to hold on to you forever. Like they don't have that problem necessarily.
Yeah.
Right. So okay. Yeah. Like,
and Runaway is also a very young squad.
Yeah.
It really is. A lot of their players are like 18, 19.
Trying to sell them to Shock now. Oh, youth. I love that.
Hoxall is just going to be turning 18. Like, it's a roster that I think these players, you'd still get years out of. So I don't see what the problem of taking the whole roster.
Okay. So I'm assuming the way you talked about it, Element, Mystic, Runaway, the top two teams of NA Korea.
I think Runaway and 7 are very close, if not 7's above. Right now in the standings, Runaway's above 7. And it's because 7, so MVP Space is 1-3 right now. They've only won a single match, and it was against 7.
Okay.
And it was a really, really, really off-color match.
Yeah.
It wasn't a match where, the underdog, did something so amazing and, overcame the favorite, right?
Yeah.
Like, MVP Space. It was, we were, watching 7, and we're just like, what the fuck are they doing? It did not look like 7 at all. Because especially in the kind of Moira Sombra death ball style that's evolved, it's a style that you can't afford to play a little bit slower and think out what you're doing for that extra second or two, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to just hit the go button constantly. And they were just hitting the go button constantly, and they just gave up fights for it. And it was a really, really weird match. And I don't know if maybe it got into their head that after only 3 weeks of play, they had already locked themselves in for playoffs because that's how dominant they had been, right? They had won matches so convincingly that, the way that the tiebreakers determined, they were in no matter what. They were 3-0, and they had won so many maps. I don't know if that got to them a little bit. I really don't know what's going on. I think this week when they play, who do they play?
O2 Ardent?
Yeah, they play O2 Ardent to end the week. It's the last match of the season.
Yeah.
I think that'll be a better indication of what's actually going on with them once we get a second match of kind of whatever's happening to them. But I still kind of think 7 is better because I just think that was like just a really bad day for them because it was just so off color. That being said, Runaway is not far behind if they are behind, to be fair. Runaway is also really good. But those are definitely kind of where I'd put the top 3. Because Group A is not looking so great.
Yeah.
X6 and Metabellum are good, don't get me wrong, and they're better than most NA Contenders teams. But just kind of compared to the field, they just don't quite stack up.
Okay. Wait, do you know if Korean Contenders still uses the like group nominations?
I do not, and I don't believe they do, because the rule set that Blizzard wrote for Contenders has had schedules for every region in it, including Korea.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm pretty sure it's going to be a seeding-based thing, where first place 4th, second place 3rd, so on.
Okay. No, because that could just be a part of it. Like, if you just think about the way it could have worked, like, if you just lock in, like, and, like, people are choosing you, like, it doesn't really matter for 7, assuming they're as good as you say. Like, because Runaway or Element Mystic isn't going to choose them first round in that case.
Yeah, no, you would never do that. And yeah, that's true. I don't think it's that style.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Just because like Blizzard has standardized Contenders across regions, I don't think it is.
Mm-hmm. But I guess it's not that big of a problem for 7 anyway, because they're going to have to run into one of these 2 teams in the semifinals, no matter what.
Yeah, and even if they end up in 2nd seed in this group, they'll be playing like Metabellum
or something like that. Yeah.
Or Blossom.
Yeah, so it's not that
actually
big of a
Blossom.
deal.
Oh no, Blossom would be 4th seed at the best.
Yeah.
So they'd be playing like Metabellum or X6, and they'll be fighting against either one.
Okay.
The biggest thing is that they just need to win their next match. Because if, in theory, I believe if they get like 4-0'd in their next match, if they get 4-0'd, because O2 Ardent is in 4th right now. So if they get 4-0'd, the map differential ends up in a way where I'm pretty sure 7 could end up playing Element Mystic in quarterfinals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that would be the absolute like DEFCON 5 nightmare situation for them. Just because you don't want to get kicked out that early.
Yeah, you do not. Okay.
No.
So let's talk. All right, I think we've gone over Contenders, gone over Roland Team, gone over the American Revolution in NA. Pretty great. Pretty funny. So I guess it's time to talk about Overwatch League proper. So you want to go from the bottom to the top or from the top to the bottom? It's not like we'll have to talk about all the teams, but there is a certain team I will talk about that's at the very bottom.
Let's do top to the bottom. Let's end on Dragons.
All right.
Let's end on Dragons.
So top to bottom. So in my view, basically, Overwatch League has kind of played out how I expected. The top 3 teams being the 3 Korean teams, at least in standings so far. Yes, overall standings, because Seoul Dynasty is still living off of that old.
They are still ahead.
They're still ahead. Like you would think they'd be worse than they are, but that's just like recency bias. Overall, like in terms of pure games, they're still top 3.
Yeah, and the stage standings doesn't matter for playoff seedings. That's true. They are still first. Although to be fair, they are only 1 match ahead of Valiant.
Yes. Right now. So they're
in Pacific Division.
Yeah. So it's not like it's a lock or anything. They're just like barely hanging on. But we'll talk about them later because I think that's like the entire story of Seoul Dynasty in a sense. But New York Excelsior, basically, this was a team like the way people were talking about them before the league started. They're like, yeah, they're probably not going to be that great just because, they don't get to use Flower yet. So we don't really know anything about this Jonak guy. As it turned out, they didn't need Flower. They actually just built an altar to Jonak. And now they have destroyed everybody because this is basically a team where, like, stage 1, they're like, oh, apparently they have a bunch of sick players. Say Biobi is probably the best Tracer. Jonak is definitely the best Zenyatta. And then they have, like, Arc, supporting Jonak, like his child.
And it's like, yeah, we have this star Tracer player. Who's your other DPS? Oh, Pine and Libero. Like, that whole thing. It's like it's a scary roster. And they have good tank players.
Yeah, they have good tank players. Like, it's all, and like their teamwork has melded together. Like Libero has actually gone Like he wasn't that good in stage 1, I don't think, but he was like he fit his role basically is how I'd put it.
Yeah, and when you have players like Sabiolbi and Jonak, you need role players, in my opinion. And Libero has always been like that's what he's made his career on, as being a role player. I mean, back when we first saw Libero play on Meta, all anyone talked about when they talked about Meta was Hoon for that season, right? Hoon Zarya. But I think it kind of flew under the radar a little bit how much Libero did for that team. Because like back then, Libero played stuff like May and like just weird stuff just to like help his team be.
Hey man, those are great May strats. Gotta say
they were fantastic May strats. The May strats were so amazing that I specifically remember when gamers made the merge with Dot Esports, the first article I wrote officially at Dot Esports was about Libero's May and how Meta was using May. Like. Libero has always been a role player, and I think it's a perfect slot for him on NYXL. And going into the season, I think there was a lot of concern that they would be missing out on Flower because I think people slept on Sabiolbi for a long time. I really do. I think
like listen, I'll put it this way, like it's not like I watched a bunch of Overwatch League. I just try to do as much as I can, but like I'm watching like a billion games, right? You got
a lot of other stuff going on.
Listen, there are like very few people that watch as many games as I do, but basically, like I was catching up with the media. Like nobody is actually like there's no way to rank it, but basically like Sabiolbi's name was not ringing out before Overwatch League started. Like
no, it was kind of there, but a lot of the talk around the old LW teams was always Flower. It was Flower. And I feel like a lot of people just thought that without Flower, they weren't going to be nearly as good. But to be fair, nobody saw
Jonak coming.
That is, as of now, I think it's hard to argue against Jonak as being the best ladder pickup, like pure ladder pickup in Overwatch so far. And I would not be surprised if in 3, 4, 5 years we still say that. I would not be surprised if we're still saying that because Jonak is fucking nuts and he just like came off ladder.
It's even funnier because like apparently the story goes like he was playing Ana on ladder, and now he's playing Zenyatta the entire time. Like what happened? And then great thing about Jonak is like he kind of broke the rule in a sense. Like just the way you would write the unit compositions, be like, okay, so other teams they got like 2 DPS, 2 tanks, 2 support. In New York Excelsior, they get 3 DPS, 2 tanks, 2 support. Like wait, what? They have an extra player? Yeah, they have an extra player in there, in a sense.
Because I remember in stage 1, there were multiple series and multiple maps where they like put the infographic on the screen and they're like, Jonak has gold damage, like, and it's like Jonak has gold damage when he's like playing alongside Sabiolbi. And I remember for like initially when I saw those stats, I was like, oh shit, like is Sabiolbi like playing really poorly?
No,
it just turns out Jonak's just insane. But like when you see that stat alone, right, that the Zenyatta is consistently doing more damage than his Tracer player, it's inherent to me that I'm like, oh shit, like what's going on? Like something's wrong. Because Tracer, just as a general rule, just does the most damage in the game because even from a purely like mathematical standpoint, like removing all the factors of like where people might be and like positions and stuff in the game, her potential DPS is right up there with some of the highest, right? But once you think about her mobility and the ability to get behind people and do damage from safety and just like be all over a fight, her damage is just insane. So when I see that Tracer isn't doing, is consistently getting beat out in damage by a Zenyatta, I get worried. But then no, Jonak's just
because like basically they got this Jonak guy like, okay, like here's how I imagine it went down. I was like, okay, let's play a standard comp, let's see how this goes out. He plays Zenyatta and like everybody dies. Like wait, what? Do that again. And they do that again.
Okay, yeah.
It's like, okay, Arc, this time boost him. It's like, okay, oh shit, this is the strategy. And that's basically what happened with New York Excel.
And to be fair, the stage 1 meta was like totally Jonak's meta. You just played Mercy Zen and Mercy healed and damage boosted the Zenyatta, and the Zenyatta just harmony orbed the Mercy.
Yeah.
And it was Mercy was really broken, so like she was really good at protecting your, pocketing your Zen. Your Zen would just throw a harmony orb on Mercy, and then she was impossible to kill. And the way that I don't know if everyone says like this. I know the broadcast doesn't say this, but how my players described it was the supports just sit there and they just suck each other off. And
of course they wouldn't say that. Yes.
Yeah, and the broadcast would never. But they just sit there and just suck each other off, and it's so difficult to kill either one because Mercy Pocket is already a lot of healing, and you send Tracer to go deal with Zenyatta, and Zenyatta can like two-shot Tracer with Discord Orb, right? Mm-hmm. But the Tracer is trying to do damage while he's being healed at 50 health per second. So every time Tracer goes for a reload, he just has 50 more health.
Yeah.
And while she's shooting him, he's healing. It's insane. So it's very difficult for the Tracer player to win that. So it was just his meta. It really was his meta. He's still doing very well, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But stage 1, when he made his debut, was also the perfect time for him.
Mm-hmm. Now, talked about all this great things about New York Excel, like Sabielby's a god, Libero's a great role player, they have great tanks. Ark's pretty good support player, in my opinion.
Yeah, totally.
Jonak, probably still in the case for best player in the league, basically.
I don't know if it might have happened. I just don't pay super close attention. Did we ever find out or did they ever do an interview or anything where they reveal who does the shot calling for that team? I'm assuming Ark.
It's Ark, I think.
Is it? Okay.
Like, I think it was like, it sounds like it was him just based off of what he was talking about in his interview with, like, not interview, but like when he was on Summoning Insight or whatever.
Oversight?
Oversight, yeah, that's what it's called now. Yeah. Basically the same show, different game, same show.
Same show, different game, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's him, but
okay.
It's hard.
It would make sense. It would make sense.
It would make the most sense, but like basically, the way shot calling works in a majority of games, except for a few of them, is like everybody contributes a bit, but there's like a deciding voice. I think Ark is probably the deciding voice, is my guess.
Yeah,
right. Like that's generally how it works, not all the time.
But yeah, Overwatch is kind of interesting in shot calling, where your shot caller can change based off ultimates. Mm-hmm. And I think that's unique to a lot of other games. Like, in a generally speaking sense, it makes a lot of sense for your Winston player to be calling dives, right? Mm-hmm. Your Tracer player might go to the flank and scout and feed critical information, but your Winston player, generally speaking, is the one that hits the go button, right?
Yeah.
But if you're playing like Genji Tracer, and Genji has Dragon Blade, he becomes the one who hits the go button.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, because Dragon Blade is like so powerful and so important to set up properly. So I think that's a unique area of this game, where and it works for a lot of DPS ults, to be fair. Besides like Pulse Bomb, really. But like in the Beyblade meta, like Reaper, when he had Death Blossom, he was a lot of time like, give me Nano now, right? He would make a lot of those calls. So I think it's really interesting where it can change from your tank to your DPS based on your ults.
Well, actually, this reminds me of this old theory that Eternal Envy once had from Dota 2, where I basically said, I think he basically said something like the shot calling should shift depending on the phase of the game, because what would happen in Dota 2 is the support roaming duo is like the two players that are dictating the vision and the action of the entire game, early game, right? So they're the guys who are like calling for the ganks. They're the guys who are like, okay, we group up here, we attack here, we kill him, we take the tower. That's kind of how it works. But once you get into like the middle late game, the player who should be calling in this theoretical world
probably your carry
is a carry, because he's the guy who's getting all the money. So he understands his item timings relative to the other player's item timings, and when there's a differential. Right,
especially in Dota, where you can like hard funnel.
Yeah, hard funnel all the resources, which is like a similar concept to Overwatch. Obviously, the way you've described it. So I just think that's a good way to think about it. Just because the player who shot calls is the player who is who is in that moment the most critical player on the map, in a sense.
Yeah, right? That's fair. And a lot of times it's your Winston, just because Winston does a lot of good things.
Yeah.
And it would be D.Va, I would say, if her shift cooldown was a little bit shorter. Mm-hmm. But because it's a little bit longer, and it's not actually longer, they're both 6 seconds, but the difference is that D.Va's cooldown doesn't start until she finishes moving. Mm-hmm. But Winston's cooldown starts the second he pushes the button, so it always ends up being shorter, right?
Yeah.
As well as he goes much farther and much faster. So D.Va ends up being a little bit more reactive, but tanks have always been a traditional spot for engage calls. Whether it be Reinhardt, Zarya back in the day, or now having Winston D.Va, tanks are kind of a natural engage call because I don't know, they're the tanks. That's just kind of how it works.
Yeah,
they're responsible for making space, going in. And then when your DPS has resources, I guess ultimates, right?
Yeah,
you can make the call.
Yeah. So actually, I did miss this question, but we can go back to it now. Like, is there a specific way you have? You don't actually have to tell me because this obviously would give away trade secrets. But do you have a specific way of having your team structure team comms? Because here's
yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't think you can be a top level professional team without like sitting down and being like, look, this is what you do, 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 right?
Yeah.
I just don't think it's ever going to work because otherwise
you're Swedish.
People are going to start overlapping. And inevitably at a certain point, this is a general philosophy that I've had in every esport I've ever worked in, watched, this is a general philosophy that I've had where it is far better to have a plan and have everyone on the same page of the plan and just follow the call than it is to make the, perfect call.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's not like a unique philosophy to me. I know a lot of people share that ideology. So I think inevitably when you have a shot calling structure, there has to be, like you said earlier, that deciding voice, right?
Yeah.
Where people can give input or people can be like, oh, I see this, I have this opportunity. And sometimes, especially in Overwatch, especially your DPS players, like Tracer, for example, if she sees, a support player by themselves, she's not going to like ask for permission.
They have to just go. They don't have time.
Yeah. To like double blink pulse bomb. Like she's never going to be like, can I pulse bomb? Like that takes way too long.
Yeah.
But if it's something like, if it's something more a little bit, kind of a
rat Overwatch
style. If it's maybe you're trying to set up attack visor, from Soldier. That's something where the soldier's like, I think I'm going to go high ground, like as you're going into the fight, right?
Yeah.
And I think the deciding your plan heading into the fight is a very important voice to have.
Yeah.
And people can kind of state what they want to do going into the fight. The tanks go, oh, I want to jump this person, or maybe I'm going to peel. Your Tracer might say, I'm going to go for backline, I'm going to whatever. And then all of that input can be put into somebody who, generally speaking, would be, which these days is a lot of times the macro caller. Not kind of because there's not really a better term.
Is it like the strat caller in a sense?
Yeah, kind of, who says, okay, or sometimes it's as simple as, the strat caller goes, okay, what ultimates do we have? And the strat caller a lot of the time is also responsible for mentally keeping track of what they've used and what they might have, and goes, okay, they're going to have this, but we have, they have tac visor, but we have beat. So when they pop, tac visor, we're going to beat and jump the soldier, right? Something like that. Something as simple as that can give you gives everyone kind of a checklist to start the fight off. And, if you kill the soldier, then it's great. Then, maybe your DPS has also got somebody low and they call a target and you kind of go from there. But I don't think you can be a top level team without having that structure in place.
I mean, it's possible. I'll give you an example actually. Basically, but this is
it has to be.
This is like an exceptional example. It's not something you should follow.
It has to be like the Moscow 5.
Yeah, actually, Moscow 5 is actually right up there. Yes.
Like it has to be like the Moscow 5, like Gambit Gaming from League of Legends for anyone who doesn't know. It has to be like that roster where it's like every player, once they get into a team fight, just thinks the exact same way.
Yeah, basically
That's super rare.
Yeah, like that's literally impossible most of the time. Because even when you construct teams, you can't think on that level because like you don't even know what you would look for, which is basically like this completely natural synergy where like everybody's thinking on the same thing anyway, so you don't actually need to talk. And that's technically the best communication just because you don't need to communicate. Like Moscow 5 is actually a great example. Another one I was thinking of was like Fnatic 2015 from CSGO because they actually had their comms released basically.
I do remember that, yeah.
And they literally like they were the best team that time and they literally did not talk to each other.
Yeah.
And they
knew what to do.
They knew what to do. So it's like, now listen, that's actually very rare, and you should not build a team around that idea.
Yeah, and I think Counter-Strike, maybe you can correct me on this, but I think Counter-Strike is a little bit easier to have less input from people because it's a bit of a slower game, right? And there's not like the same like scale of team fights where you're trying to balance abilities.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, usually it's different basically, but yeah,
yeah.
Like basically, you're not calling because of the way the resource management works. I feel like you would have to talk more in Overwatch. That's just my guess.
Totally.
It's not like I've been in a team. That's my guess is you have to talk more in Overwatch, whereas like in CS:GO you have to be giving out the information. But a lot of them still depend on the overall like leader to figure out how all that information works.
Yeah, no, for sure. Overwatch, everyone's talking constantly because, like we talked about earlier, there's no mini map, so everyone has a different perspective. Especially when you have people on the flanks and stuff, they have very unique perspectives. Then, because if you have like your two supports sitting next to each other, right?
Yeah,
they're gonna have basically the same perspective in terms of like what's literally on their screen. It's gonna be very similar. But your attrition player who's off on the flank or your tank who's up in the front line is going to see something very different. So everyone has to communicate what they're seeing, especially once you get into team fights for critical abilities that aren't ultimates, because ultimates have sound cues to them.
Yeah.
So you can know what's happening when people use ultimates. But stuff like, I don't know, sleep dart, right?
Yeah.
Like when Ana was in play, if your Genji is just like throwing shurikens at tanks and your tracer notices, hey, there's no sleep dart on the Ana, the Genji can just like instant dash the Ana because he's like, okay. Or if Biotic Grenade and sleep dart down, the Genji goes, cool, Ana's useless now.
Yeah.
Like I can just jump her and kill her. So stuff like that definitely matters a lot. Because it's not like in like I keep going back to League of Legends because that's the game that I worked in before Overwatch. But you know, your carry can be hitting tanks, but he can still see on his screen because he can see most of the team fight. If like the enemy AD carry like flashed forward into a dumb position, right? Like he doesn't necessarily like people will still call it, but he doesn't necessarily need to be told that like the enemy AD carry has like used a really important cooldown. But in Overwatch, that happens all the time. That he has no idea that flashbang, sleep dart, whatever it is, you know, is down. So stuff like that can matter a lot for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because it feels like the way the team communications would work would be very important in Overwatch.
So, very much.
So I was just wondering about that because like not necessarily all teams will have that like structure depending on what game you're talking about. So
yeah.
I was just curious. All right. So back to the actual topic. We were talking about New York Excels. Like we're talking about all these good things, but they did fail. They did show a little bit of that LW Blue heritage in stage 1 where they failed in the playoffs.
Oh, in the playoffs, yeah.
In the playoffs, you know, but technically that doesn't count. They did win, I think, stage 2, basically.
Yeah.
And recently they just got bopped by Boston, right?
Yeah, they got. I wouldn't say bopped. It was a 3-2.
No, it wasn't a bop, but it was more like I just remember the tweet afterward from the Boston coach. Download complete.
Oh.
Shout out to
that was pretty good.
Shout out to Wizard. Shout out to Infiltration. Shout out to all those guys.
That was pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Boston looks really good though.
Yeah,
I mean, Boston beat like the Fusion, the Outlaws, and NYXL, right?
Yeah.
They've beat like
they're on the rise basically.
Legit teams.
Since we're on the topic, we may as well talk about Boston. So, straight up, Boston was like this team that everybody was memeing about before Overwatch League started. Or like, man, this Hug guy, he doesn't know shit, etc., etc. Turns out, I don't know what the fuck they did, but it worked.
So, Boston, this is something that I heard about. From people who participated in it. Boston in their trial process for the Overwatch League team, right? Not their academy team. For their academy team, they just bought Toronto Esports.
Yeah.
But
shout out to Huck, yes.
Shout out to Huck. But for their trial period, my understanding is that basically what they did is they would schedule 12 players, right? They say, hey, you're going to be in this 2-hour block. They wouldn't tell the players who they're playing with, right? They literally wouldn't tell them. They would put them all in a Discord voice channel, and then they would, and like all the 12 players would just be sitting there, kind of just like the way it was described to me is they'd just be awkwardly sitting there hey, like we're all trying out for this team, like, and you know who you're trying out against, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the roles. And then they would just move everybody into different like voice channels and just invite them to the game on different teams. And they would just like play the scrim, and the coaches would like bounce back and forth through the teams and like listen to comms and just like watch the scrim. And they would basically just like theory craft these rosters and like move pieces around, right? And the whole time, my understanding is they didn't really tell the players what was going on. They didn't really tell the players like, hey, you are our number one like prospect for this position, right? My understanding was like it was kind of just like trying shit out and kind of seeing where it went. And then they like offered contracts to people. And I don't know how true that is, but this was told to me by players who participated in the trial. So I'm going to assume.
Sounds like Ender's Game, kind of.
Kind of. And the thing was, when I heard about that, I was initially like, wow, that's kind of awful. Like those poor players. But then Chu, my assistant coach, was like, yeah, dude, but if you had the power over, like the puppet master power, well, like, would you not do the same thing? Sit there, like, theory craft all these rosters? And I was like, nah, shit, yeah, I would.
Oh, I wouldn't. I'd just be bummed. Like, okay, let's just buy run away. Let's move on.
I run away and move on. At the time, you wouldn't have Hawk Salt, but,
yeah,
you're not wrong. Yeah,
yeah. I could get Hawk Salt later. That's like the point. Like you just build the base first and then let's roll, right? But yeah, it makes sense. So basically, they started off surprising. I think they were actually the first team to straight up beat a Korean team too. I think that was them as well.
Were they?
Yeah, I think they were. It was like in stage 1.
They might be. You might be completely right. I just might not remember.
Yeah, it's not like it's that big of a deal, but that's what I remember. Basically, it was like they were the first ones to do it.
They beat Spitfire in week 3, so that might be it.
Yeah, basically I think they were the first ones to do it. So, yeah, basically, as far as I know, I
totally forgot about that.
Yeah, well, they started off as like a joke in a sense. We'll start with, because basically like
a little bit, yeah. But my point behind like saying the trial thing is, I think they actually were pretty like, I don't know. This is where hanging out with pro players has infected my vocabulary in a very bad way. But they big brained it, right? Yeah. I think that like they were kind of undercover, like kind of without anyone really knowing. They very specifically picked
these players
who they wanted on that roster, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't hear that story until after the season started. So going into the season, I had a lot of the same expectations as many other people did, that they weren't going to be very good. But once I heard that story and I've seen how well they have surprised me. I'm like, all right, I get it,
Yeah. So basically, they were very good. Not very good. They exceeded expectations. Then they went down because Gamsu decided to go on a vacation in Korea or something. I'm not exactly sure what the fuck that was about.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of the Korean players. I've heard from people that a lot of the Korean players are incredibly homesick.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
And they're just like not having a great time.
Even though there's like a Koreatown right there, yes.
Yeah, it's never going to be quite the same, obviously. Mm-hmm. But I've heard that a lot of the Korean players are struggling a little bit dealing with the move. I'm trying to remember who it was. It was one of the Contenders teams, even. I'm not even going to say who it is if I remember, but one of the Contenders teams that has Korean players on the roster, so it could be like 8 different teams. In North America, we were scrimming them, and they're like, "Hey, we need to cancel like a little bit early. Like we have a couple of players who aren't feeling well," and it was because the couple of the players were reacting poorly to American food.
Yeah.
They like came to America, and the food is like way greasier for anyone who doesn't know,
mm-hmm.
way worse for you, and they just were sick from it. So we cut the scrim block like 30 minutes early.
Yeah.
And I feel really bad for them, but I also don't know what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. So. Actually, this is a funny point, but basically, the way Overwatch League like thinks it'll work out is these teams are gonna go like split off into different cities, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's my prediction. My prediction is LA is going to become the best. Any team in LA is going to become the best. Because what's eventually going to happen is all these Koreans are going to realize, wait, I can't eat Korean food in almost any of these other cities except for like maybe New York. maybe San Francisco. I'm not exactly sure, but it has to be like one of these big cities.
San Francisco is pretty good Korean food.
Yeah,
I live in San Francisco. I will attest to that.
Okay, so
I don't know how traditional it is. I suppose.
yeah.
I think it's
Basically, my prediction is like any team and every team that wants a Korean and like has to move into these different cities, they have to have like a Korean restaurant or like a huge like Korean community in there, or like the Koreans are gonna be a problem basically.
I just think you need to do what the Philadelphia Fusion did and get an in-house cook, but get, somebody who cooks authentic,
Korean
homemade
style
Korean food.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I don't really see what the problem with that is.
That could work, but like we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, because the Philadelphia Fusion, for anyone who hasn't seen, I don't know if you've seen actually, Stuchu.
I just saw like random. I was like, wait, what the fuck is this?
Their in-house cook, the food that she cooks. Every time it pops up on my Twitter feed, I'm like, all right, shit, I'm hungry now. Like it looks really good. But my point being, it's like, come on, these are like multi-million-dollar teams. You can pay a chef. Like, pay a chef, bring in somebody who cooks Korean food, and then that food issue kind of solves it. It doesn't really solve the homesick issue, but I think it would alleviate some of it.
Okay. Also, all right, so basically on the Boston Uprising a bit, do you think they are the best of the teams outside of the Korean, Western teams?
I think, maybe. I think their match against, when do they play the Fusion? Do they play the Fusion? Because if they play the Fusion, it doesn't look like they play the Fusion. Oh, sorry, wait. Am I going crazy? Didn't they already play the Fusion?
I thought they did.
Yeah, they already played the Fusion.
Yeah, they beat them, right?
I was looking in the future weeks, but they already played them this
yeah.
Yeah, because the Fusion obviously was one of the teams that I think surprised a lot of people by making it to the finals of the Stage 2 playoffs.
Yeah.
They beat the London Spitfire, which I still think was an upset, right? They 3-2 them, though. They took NYXL to the 5th map in the stage playoffs. So I think going into Stage 3, a lot of people's expectation was that the Fusion were the best Western team. But Boston taking the win over Fusion, and just it's not even the fact that they won necessarily.
It's just the way they've done it.
It's the character in which they've done it. It's like they're not insanely better than Fusion. It went to 5 maps, but the fact that they like fucking rolled the Outlaws and then beating NYXL is worth a lot as well. It's pretty hard to deny that that's an accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
It's the character in which they've done so, and the fact that they.
It's hard to think of one, right? It's hard to think of a team better.
A Western team for sure. And honestly, beating NYXL, if they keep this form up, who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? They might be contesting this stage playoffs.
Okay. But do you think they'll be the best by the end?
By the best Western team by the end of the season, or the best team?
Best Western team.
If you think I think they're a contender. I think my kind of two that I would go for right now would either be the Fusion or the Uprising.
Yeah, because I'm guessing it's gonna be the Fusion, because there's this dude named Sato who's coming in.
Yeah, that's true.
Now I don't actually know if Sato's actually that good, but if you are willing to wait 30 games for this guy, he must be something. That's all I'm gonna say.
I don't know if they really have a choice, but yeah. Yeah, that's true. I actually did. I kind of forgot about Sato, to be completely honest, just because there's so much other stuff going on. But the Fusion is. I'm glad that their kind of full roster is finally seeing play.
Fusions.
Yeah,
we'll talk about Fusion then, because Fusion is the other team.
Yeah, I'm glad that Echo specifically, or EQO, got to see play, because EQO is a player that. I don't know. I kind of feel like he was under the radar for how just absurdly good he was. I remember a scrim when we were doing trials. We were trying out some EU players. Didn't end up going with any EU players. But when we were playing with the EU players, we would play some scrims on the EU servers. And we scrimmed against the Fusion, because the Fusion, of course, is like primarily EU players.
Yeah.
So we scrimmed against a full Fusion lineup, like the Overwatch League roster on the EU servers. And I just remember us for like, I don't even remember. Like we were playing Hollywood and we capped first pretty quick, like maybe like a minute, maybe 2 minutes, and then I just remember getting spawn camped for like 6 minutes by EQO's Widow.
Yeah,
and it was just, and we're just like, okay, guys. And we just got spawn camp for like 6 minutes from his Widow, and then like the next map he did the same thing to us on Genji, and we're just like all right, like what are we supposed to do here?
It's not even the best Widow on this fucking team.
No, that's the crazy thing, right? But he's a really good player. So I'm glad that he finally got to see some play, and then he had to fuck it up on stream. He had to do the whole like eyes thing.
Listen, at least he did. At least he didn't do the Pepe meme. At least he didn't do the Pepe meme. That could have been like a 30-game suspension. We don't know, man.
At least he didn't use tryhard 7 like twice or whatever it was.
Yeah, basically, I'm not sure if I'm actually gonna write an article about it, but one day I'm just gonna like convert all the fines and suspensions into how many tryhard memes it was worth.
Oh god.
Like a currency.
Oh no. Now that you said it, someone might be like, I should do that. Yeah, I don't know. He's only suspended like 3 games, I think. So
yeah, he should be back soon, basically.
I think the Fusion self-suspended him too, right?
I'm not exactly sure, but
I actually don't remember that.
Listen, there's too many fines, there's too many suspensions that I stopped paying attention after the first few.
I do too a little bit.
Yeah. Somebody's always getting fined, somebody's always getting suspended. So
you're not wrong. But yeah, so I think the Fusion, I legitimately did forget about Sato because he was banned for so long.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Fusion or the Uprising probably. Valiant's not looking bad though, to be fair.
Mm-hmm. They've resurrected Bunny because I thought Bunny looked pretty bad in Seoul Dynasty.
They've resurrected Bunny. They saved Custa.
Yeah. From
the fuel. They did a whole bunch of weird stuff. But they look pretty solid, so I can't complain too much about them either. I think the Outlaws, because in the standings, the Outlaws are up there, technically,
like
in the standings. But the other issue is for the Outlaws to contest playoffs. Like the Atlantic Division is so stacked because the Atlantic Division is NYXL, Spitfire, Boston, Philly.
Yeah.
Like you're telling me the Outlaws are going to beat out 2 of those teams to make playoffs?
Pretty unlikely.
That's pretty tough because they're already behind in the standings, but I'm only by a couple matches to be fair. But it just doesn't seem likely over the course of the season.
Yeah. So, like the way I put the Outlaws in general is like they started off good, they've remained good, but they're not evolving. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I think that if the Houston Outlaws adapt, because Stage 3 is on this patch, right? It's on the Sombra patch. And I think Houston Outlaws could super easily adapt the Moira Sombra Deathball style. You just put Jake on Sombra, he holds left click on people, and he can like be a quasi shot caller on Sombra. Because Sombra inherently with EMP and hacks, they're both super powerful. So she dictates a lot of the fights. I think like you just do that. And you can play a very similar Deathball anti-dive style with that comp. That they played in Stage 1. Play a similar style, and I think they could make it work. I think they could start taking some series. But they got to do it fast.
Okay. All right. Okay, makes sense. All right. So let's see here. Was there? I think we've gone through most of these. I will say there's a funny sort of line you can draw between LA Valiant and Dallas Fuel. In a sense, like I feel like both teams had like a huge like structural problem in the middle of the season. But basically, as far as I can tell, like Valiant cut off all the players that was a problem.
The funny thing about the Valiant structure problem is we wouldn't even necessarily know there's a structure problem if it wasn't for that stupid YouTube series.
What are you talking about, man? In and Out is like the best meme of the Overwatch League.
Okay, so this is a topic that I am very passionate about because I get very angry at people who ask EnVision for it, and when I worked in League of Legends, who asked the teams I worked for in League of Legends for it. The whole transparency thing.
Oh, that's pretty bad. Yeah.
So if you are a fan and you are asking for transparency about the decisions from your favorite team, and you're asking for it because you want to know what is going wrong, that's one thing, right?
Yeah.
But that, I think, regardless, the team needs to hold off and needs to like do it in interviews like postseason or something, right? So it can be like a retrospective look, and the fans could be like, because then it's a feel good moment, right? Where the fans go, yeah, you know what? I'm a fan of this team. They didn't do super great, but I can read this interview, watch this interview, and I know that they realize their mistakes, right? And I can keep being a fan of them. That I think is positive, both for the fans. They get to know what went wrong. Maybe a little later, they have to wait. That's fine. But like all these Reddit comments that are like, Kai needs to be transparent
right now,
and like the way that right now, because we can help him fix these problems, right? Like that's the way that so many fans have phrased it. Like, we need to know what your decisions are, because then we can give give you our opinion.
Twitch plays Overwatch League, yes.
And it's like when fans write that shit, it's like your opinion is worthless. You do not have some insight into Overwatch and how the Overwatch team works, and like how this team works, how the game works, just because the coach is like, oh yeah, we put this player in because X, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like your opinion is not somehow going to magically make this team better. Most people watching the Overwatch League, you have no idea what's going on. Like, you don't understand the underpinnings of the game. And that's not even like necessarily an insult. Like, it's just, you just don't do this with your life, right? And like, Overwatch is a very complicated game. I'm learning shit every day, and like, this is what I'm doing with my life. When fans ask for transparency, and the way that they ask for transparency, where it's like, let me help you, it's like, no, shut the fuck up, get out of here. Like, you are not going to help somehow by knowing what's going on. Oh god. That it annoys me.
Yeah, because just the way like LA Valiant happens, like basically like the way Noah Winston describes it is like, yeah, basically we made Moon the dictator. He is like the literal god king of our organization. And that's basically what happened is like, okay, he comes in, it's like, you guys are two teams, we're only making one team, you get out, etc. Like, that's kind of what happened, and it worked. Like, they were in free fall, and then they have stabilized, and they're going back up.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, because like in Fuel, it's like literally like keeps getting worse. I will say Fuel for later, because I think we will end this on a comedic note with Fuel and Dragons, because I think.
Did you see the Twitch clip of Monty's joke about the Fuel?
That was fantastic
on air. That was, whew, that was fucking spicy as shit. That was a good fucking joke.
Man. I hope XQC is taking notes, because that's how you flame somebody.
That is how you flame somebody in an artful way. Yeah. No, that was perfect.
It's great. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of that.
Yeah. Say what you will. I know Monty is a relatively divisive figure. He's not Thorn. Like, he has some people who love him, has some people who hate him. Say what you will, but man, he burns people in just the best ways.
Yes.
Oh.
All right. So we actually completely went off track, but basically, go back to the Korean teams. New York, London Spitfire, basically the team that won the first one, and now I have some questions. Obviously, we know a few things. Basically, the London Spitfire, they have the best dive probably of anybody. That's probably my guess. Not sure if you agree with that.
It's certainly up there.
Yeah.
I haven't necessarily thought about that, so I'm not sure, but it's definitely, I would definitely put
it like when you talk about, they're like, okay, if you talk about best dive teams, they're like immediately one of the teams you would put in there, basically.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah.
Prophet, Birdring, probably the two of the best DPS players. We have Gesture, great tank, and then you come to the latest stage where they are, for whatever reason. Now here's my question, basically, for this.
1-2?
What?
They're 1-2 right now, I think, in this stage.
Yeah, but basically, like every time I tune in, like, here's how I watch Overwatch League, right? It's like, basically, I figure out who are the better teams, and I just like follow them a little bit. Or if like it's like a revenge story, like Fisher, I'm like, okay, let's watch Revenge, because I love Revenge. Everybody should love Revenge. It's a great, like like basically Monte Cristo named himself after like the biggest revenge novel of all time, Count of Monte Cristo. So, like everybody should love revenge.
Yeah,
it's a fun story to follow. But basically, every time I watch like London, I was like, okay, this is probably gonna be a good game. I turn on, and then they kick out Medusa, and they kick out Nuss, and then they put in these like guys I haven't even heard of, and they're pretty bad, like Closer, like Hagapun, like Hureg, like why are
they put in some of the Busan guys?
Yeah, basically, like why are London doing this? That's my question to you.
Fuck, man.
Listen. You don't have to clear answer because this question is as mystifying as like Brexit, which is like which makes sense because they're like London Spitfire.
I mean, like I don't even know. I honestly don't know.
Yeah. Because it doesn't make sense, right? Because they clearly had a winning formula, and they've decided to not use the winning formula. Right.
Okay, so here's the thing with London Spitfire, and Cloud9, how they've approached Overwatch, for the last however long. Cloud9 was building a Western roster for the Overwatch League, right, to be London Spitfire, and they like went through a bunch of tryouts, and they had coaches, they had staff lined up. But they hadn't contracted anybody yet, right? They were like waiting. I don't know what they were waiting for. They were waiting for something, and they hadn't contracted anybody yet. And my understanding is that Bishop was part of that staff. And then Bishop, former Kongu Panthera, my understanding is went to Korea for like a trip or something and was just like, we're going to get Kongu Panthera. And Jack was like, all right, we're going to get Kongu Panthera. Because at the time, Kongu Panthera looked really good. And then GC Busan beat Kongu Panthera. And I have no idea what actually happened. But in my head, I like the story of Jack woke up, looked at the results, saw that GC Busan beat Kongu Panthera, just said, fuck it, I'll just buy him too. Like, in my head, that's how it went. And because it looks like they did a similar thing for their Contenders team. The EU Pit Championship, was it Pit? Yeah. It was either Pit or Beat. Whoever won that, just like 3 days later, was suddenly the British Hurricane, the London Spitfire Contenders team, just like suddenly. So it looks like they just kind of go after like big talent. So like maybe Bishop like used to have some weird stuff kind of involved there. Of course, he's gone now. But the Spitfire, I don't know, man. It's one of those things where they had two really good rosters, right?
Yeah.
Like nobody's gonna argue that Kongu Panthera was sure they didn't beat Busan, but no one's gonna say that they were a bad roster at the time. GC Busan obviously was the best roster in the world at a time. You have so much talent. You have a lot of really good players. And my impression of watching them is that they haven't figured out still how they want to use that talent.
Which is weird because they figured it out in a sense. Like the original six, right? Like you go Prophet, Murdering, then you go Gesture, Bedosen, Nuss, and then you choose one of Fury or one of Wuhiao, basically.
Huyao, yeah, and I think you play, in my opinion, you play Huyao in the Diva meta.
Yeah. Right? Like, that's the answer, but they had the answer, but they stopped using the answer. That's the problem for me.
This is one of those things that until the interview comes out, down the road, right, we might not know.
Yeah, basically, what happened was, like, Bishop was trying to hold it together, but then the GC Busan guys finally committed revolution, ousted him, and now London Spitfire is on the downturn. Very similar to very similar to the American Revolution again, I guess. Oh, he's coming back.
That'll just be the title of the episode, right? Yeah. Overwatch, the American Revolution.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know. I think letting Fissure go was a mistake. To be fair, I think Fissure is better than Gesture.
Yeah, but like, does he work better with the DPS?
That's true.
We don't know that. Like, I feel like that's assuming Bishop was sane. Like I think Bishop was probably sane. Like maybe that's what he was thinking. It was like, Fissure is probably better. Like, but did he work better with the DPS duo? I think.
Yeah, that's actually really fair. That's a fair point.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I don't know. And maybe because, well, in my opinion, you play Huyao, maybe Gesture worked better with Huyao just because, they're more accustomed to each other. And it makes sense to have that kind of frontline synergy. Man, I don't know. They're a weird team because God, I really don't know. And of all the DPS players on this roster to let go, you let go of Rascal, not Hureg.
Yeah, that's another question I have.
Like Hureg's not even bad. Hureg's not even bad.
No. Did you hear Yiska? It's like basically like Hureg shouldn't even be on a fucking Contenders team. What is he doing in Overwatch?
Did he really say that?
Yeah.
I think Hureg. Okay, I think Hureg is. I kind of see him in the same way as Libero, where he's a total roleplay DPS, right?
Yeah.
He's a roleplay DPS, but doesn't have the. But the thing that makes Libero infinitely better, well, besides the skill gap, is the fact that Libero is a roleplay DPS on any DPS you want, on any hero in the game.
Yeah.
And Hureg doesn't quite have that. But okay, because like back when Jisoo-Busan was like the top of the world, I remember I was doing a VOD review, and I remember there was an instance where, generally speaking, your tracer player will box out the enemy tracer, right?
Yeah.
She's the one who holds the flank and kind of like does that little duel. But I remember there was an instance where Hureg was boxing out the enemy tracer as soldier, and like Prophet was just playing tracer, like diving with the tanks. And I remember being like, this is really weird. But like Hureg would just like see the enemy tracer, drop a heal pad, shoot a helix rocket, chunk her, and just be like, what are you gonna do? Like, you can't fight me. And he'd just stand there as soldier. And nobody does that. Nobody did that, because when you play soldier, generally speaking, you're playing around the soldier. You're setting him up because soldier does stupid amounts of damage if he gets the time to play around him. Like, you know, in a very traditional like MOBA like carry sense, right?
Yeah.
You like protect him and he will kill everything for you if you let him. But Hureg was like, no, I'm just gonna sit on the flank and like box the tracer as soldier. And it was like the weirdest thing, but it worked. And I think Hureg is very good in that sense. He has a purpose, is my point.
But does he have a purpose in this team?
In this team, no, because you had Birdering Rascal Prophet.
Yeah, right. So that's like that's my problem with this. Like, do they have a purpose in this team? No.
You had Birdering Rascal Prophet, and you let go of Rascal, not Hureg. I don't know. Maybe Rascal's an asshole, but that doesn't seem very likely. Because
we have an interview from him right now.
Yeah, we have interviews. We have lots of interviews with him. We have lots of stuff from him from when he was in Apex. You know, I don't understand it.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, basically,
I don't know what's going on in the Spitfire camp.
I'm not sure if the London Spitfire camp knows what's going on in the London Spitfire camp at this point.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. So we'll talk.
It's a hard ask without inside knowledge.
Yeah.
In terms of in the game though, I mean, I don't know. They're losing some series in the game, which is not great. The only losing to NYXL, this
not a huge problem.
Not a huge problem. Losing to the Outlaws, kind of a problem. But the Outlaws, I don't know. The Outlaws seem to have something about the Spitfire's number. And then the Mayhem, it seems nitpicky to be like, you guys should have 4-0'd, not tie a map against the Mayhem.
Mm-hmm.
Like they did, and it was a close series. Like Numbani had to go to a second round.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. That series was closer than I would like it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, the Mayhem are coming up because they have some new talent, but still, out of where the Spitfire kind of is in the rankings, you'd want better.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll talk about the third team, Seoul Dynasty, and here's how I'm going to explain this. Basically, the final dynasty in China before the Westerners came over to colonize it, right? I had to go historical.
I'm ready for this, dude. I'm ready for this.
Basically, I forget the exact name of this minister, but basically, when this fucking dynasty was founded, it was supposed to be the glorious end of all dynasties, and he basically proclaimed China will always be number one, foreshadowing a Twitch streamer aeons later. But China will always be number one. Therefore, we will not need to talk to these outside foreigners, and we are going to close up all the borders, and we're going to live forever in this glorious epoch of this dynasty. As it turned out, 400 years later, they're like, wait, what the fuck? Everybody else has advanced, and we are left behind.
Yeah,
and this is very similar to how I have started to think of Seoul Dynasty, where like they're always thinking about the past glories. They're like, Eska, please stay with us for as long as you can. Lee Tae-jung, please stay with us for as long as you can. And now it's like, Toei, please stay with us. Ri Ji-hyung, stay with us. And then basically what ended up happening is like with Seoul Dynasty is like they just stick to these old past glories a little bit too long. And so they are never, and they they just never reached like the potential you think they should have, basically in a sense.
Yeah. Ironically, this is the meta you want Eska, funnily enough, to come back for the Sombra meta.
And the funniest thing of all of this is actually like, just as China was stuck as a prisoner with all these colonization going on, Fleta is now stuck with all these teams like attacking him, and he has actually recreated by accident Flash Lux just on a higher scale.
We all thought this was his we all thought he was safe. We thought he had reached the promised land, but he still has to go.
And for some reason, they keep using Wakid, and I don't really think Wakid's good. Like, because here's like the problem I have with Wakid. He plays Junkrat, but so does Fleta. So why are you benching Fleta for this guy? Is my question.
Well, okay, apparently in the match that happened yesterday, apparently Fleta was sick.
Okay, you can give a pass on that, but they've done it other times. They have done it other times.
No, yeah. They won the match last night, right? No, that's right. They lost to Gladiators. That's right. They lost to Gladiators. It was a 2-3 they lost.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Man, I don't know. Because Lunatic High, the old Lunatic High roster, it was always their DPS that was the issue.
Yes.
Right? At least once they got rid of Dean and they had...
Oh, man, Dean. You forgot about that name.
Yeah, you forgot about Dean, right? They kept Dean for some reason. But once they got Zumba from Conbox, and it was Miro Zumba in the, like, heyday of Winston, right? And Miro was, like, the Winston.
The protogenitor of all of them.
Huh?
The protogenitor of all of them, like the original.
Yeah. Miro was, like, the Winston. And Ana was in meta, and Ryo Jihan could just, like, play Ana, and, like, Zumba. You know, like, the traditional way that we think about Lunatic High at all times when they were successful was they're a tank and support focused team, and the DPS just do some damage, right? They're not like insane playmakers. They never really had the like absurd DPS line, especially when they went up against teams like Kongu Panthera, who had, Burger and Rascal, right? That was like the mismatch in that grand finals, right? It's like, well, you have Burger and Rascal on this side, but you have like, Miro, Ryo, Jahong, Zumba, Toby on this side, you know? It was like you have this. So traditionally, that was the kind of the savior for the dynasty, or not the dynasty, Lunatic High. And when they became the dynasty, and when it was announced that they had Fleta, we were all like,
number one team.
Like they did it. Like they got a good DPS player. Like they're not gonna suck anymore. We have like, maybe not at that point in time, we're like, okay, they're not the number one tank in the world anymore. Miro just wasn't, right?
Yeah.
But you have a above average tank player, you have a very well above average flex tank. You still have like, sure, Ryo Hung Zenyatta isn't quite at the level of Ana, but like it's still pretty solid. You have Toby, he's Toby, he's really good. And then we have Fleta, and then it's just everybody sucks.
Everybody except Fleta and Munchkin.
Everybody except Fleta just sucks.
Yeah.
No, that's obviously a bit of an exaggeration. But I don't know. There used to be something that made Lunatic High so good was because they didn't have the DPS players to like match everybody. It's just through the kind of like how consistent their tank and support players were. They just had this really good basis of fundamentals, right?
Yeah.
And like that was the thing that a lot of people always said made Lunatic High so good was not that they made absurd plays. They did, right? Ryo Jahong did crazy stuff. Miro did crazy stuff. But it was just they were just so fundamentally good at the things that make you good at Overwatch that it on like their average day was so far above everyone else's average day. They didn't have to have like a pop-off series to be really good. And I don't necessarily think that they've lost that fundamentals. I don't think they've like forgot what the objective is or like what ultimate economy is. I just think that a lot of people have caught up. Teams have developed and they haven't accelerated, faster than anybody. They've kind of
actually gone decelerated. Like, listen, you might say they don't suck, but here's my opinion: is like Miro is pretty bad. Like Miro is
really bad right now. The number one swap I would make for Seoul Dynasty right now is a new main tank, 100%.
Like where the fuck was Seoul Dynasty? Actually, you know what? Actually, where the fuck was Seoul Dynasty in the Fisher trade? But I just realized, wait, New York Excelsiors are probably like, yeah, we're not gonna give you the best tank in the world. Fuck that shit, right?
Yeah. No, where was Dynasty in the Fisher trade? Where was Dynasty in the OGE shit? Why hasn't Dynasty bought out Panker from a Contenders team? And Panker is one that like might be going under the radar for a lot of people because he is in Contenders.
But they have a direct connect into Korea. Like I think that one's pretty unforgivable.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think the staff of the Dynasty might be mostly looking at Korean players in Korea, right?
Mm-hmm.
It might not be paying super close attention to the NA Tier 2 scene, where Panker currently resides. But where are they with Panker? Where are they with OGE? Where were they with Fissure? Where are they with, even like Evo in Korean Contenders right now? Like, there's a lot of Winston players who are better than Miro. And watching Miro play Reinhardt against Fissure last night on Oasis was fucking painful.
He got bodied pretty hard.
Fucking painful. And like Winston v Winston is something where the better Winston can win the game for his team for sure, but it's not by like beating up on the enemy Winston, right? Yeah. It's by beating up on the enemy team more than the Winston is beating up on your team, right? But Reinhardt v Reinhardt, when the better Reinhardt just fucking demolishes the other Reinhardt player. And it was so painful because it was not even close. Like Miro just got fucking rolled. And oh man.
And like just the way I think about this game is like, even though I don't consider a tank player to generally like define a team, like it's just hard for me to like consider because they don't really build it around the tank player. It's pretty fucking hard to do, at least in this meta, right? So. The way
main tank player.
Yeah, main tank. Like you could maybe you could do it with a flex, but certainly like the main tank player.
The only reason I think you can build around a flex and you could like work around what your flex player is doing is because D.Va is so broken and does so many things. It's like if you want to play a peel heavy style, you could play more soldier, right?
Yeah.
And if you have a really insane peel D.Va, you could do that. If you want to dive super hard and let your D.Va frag, you can do that, right? Yeah. I think you can do that, but like Winston is made so good because of D.Va and because Winston is just mobile. Like that's really what makes Winston good.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that he's not Reinhardt, basically.
Yeah.
He can jump places. So yeah, I don't think you can build around a Winston player. I still think they're really important. I still think Winston is a very important hero to the meta.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't build around it. And
like
I don't know.
But even though you can't build around it, like they enable other players.
Exactly. And as much as you can't build around it, the skill of your main tank directly correlates to how much room your other players have to be themselves. So the better main tank will affect the match in that way.
Yeah.
100%. And Miro is not a good main tank.
Yeah.
I still think Zunba is a good flex tank.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's as insane as he used to be. I don't think he's just, head and shoulders above people anymore.
Yeah.
But he's still good. I don't have a problem with Zunba. I don't really have a problem with Zephyr either. But Miro and Kuki, I don't know. They just don't stand up.
Like basically the way I put it is like there's a certain like amount, like when we talk about space, it'd be like how much space does Fissure give to his fucking teams? Like probably like a football field's worth of space or something. How much space does like Miro give to like his team? Probably like a baseball worth or some shit. Like it's pretty
just the infield.
Like like it feels fucking dramatic, right? But like the whole point is like yes, I actually don't think like any of the tanks or supports are doing very good on Soul Dynasty, but everything starts with the main tank basically. Like
I think you can leave the support line. Like I still have faith in the support line.
Like the first, like you don't want to swap out everything first. But the first guy you have to kick out is I think Miro. I think Miro's like basically like dragging his team down a lot. And then if you get a good team,
honestly, you could get Kuki and keep Miro on the bench.
Yeah, fine. Maybe do that.
I don't have problems with that. But either way, you need a new starting main tank.
Yeah.
Whatever the decision is for the sub main tank, it doesn't really bother me all that much. But I think you need a new starting main tank.
Yeah, basically like Miro, like basically the whole point is like I don't actually. It's not a fair judgment of the supports and Zumba because Miro is like doing so bad.
Yeah.
Like I still think they've fallen off, but I don't actually know how much relative to that were before because Miro was so much worse than before. But I will say like Fletta's fucking killing it.
Miro's been on a pretty steady decline.
Yeah.
For a long time now.
like
seriously, probably a year. He's been on a just steady decline.
It's like everybody's like favorite fucking movie star, like it's getting worse over time. Don't worry, man. He's gonna come back and make a good movie next. And then like the next one comes out, like oh, this one's actually. I have the perfect analogy. It's basically just Star Wars. Miro is Star Wars. Like all these Star Wars fans like, oh, it's so good. And then the next one comes like, oh shit. Oh, you know what? We just have to wait for the next one. I'm sure the next one will be better. They wait for the next one. Like I'm sure this next one will be better. And then they keep going that. And it's like 10 years later, like oh shit, they were all shit. And then that's kind of what Miro is. Like
I liked Force Awakens. Okay. I liked Force Awakens. And that's Rogue One was okay, and then Last Jedi was
yeah, basically the
okay. But see, the thing with Miro, actually, this really works. The thing with Miro is how we like think of him, right? In like in terms of like history, right? Because when I think of the Last Jedi, because I don't want to acknowledge how awful the plot for Last Jedi was, I just think about how beautiful the cinematography was, right? Because Last Jedi was beautifully shot. Like it really was. The way that they constructed the visuals was like so great. And like when I think of Miro, I have this like beautiful picture in my head of like what really seriously when I think of Miro and like what he was, I think of literally what Panker is at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Winston player who, like after you lose a team fight, your supports go, yeah, we just had Winston on us that whole team fight. And then your DPS goes, well, I had Winston on me that whole team fight. And then your Winston goes, wait, but Winston was marking me. And it's because the Winston was just everywhere, right?
Yeah.
He's just doing so much. And like that's what Miro was to me. He was just like everywhere. And that's exactly what Panker does.
And now he is nowhere.
And no, that's not true. That's not true.
That's a joke. He is somewhere on the map. Yes.
He's just in the death chamber, okay?
Okay.
He's not quite Roshan, but you know.
Oh yeah, shout outs to Roshan. They never did get that cheese after his third death. It's too bad.
Nope, they never did. Never did.
But yeah, basically, like Miro needs to get fangirled, and when
Miro needs to get fangirled,
yeah,
and then they need a dedicated Tracer player.
Probably.
I don't know how the Dynasty looked at the last year and a half of Overwatch meta and looked at Tracer's current state of balance and the fact that like Blizzard has said before that they're like not really interested in nerfing Tracer and been like, yeah, we don't need a dedicated Tracer player.
Didn't they try though? Didn't they try to get like Munchkin and Bunny and somebody else?
They tried, but at no point were they dedicated Tracer players. And somebody, I don't remember who did it, but somebody on Reddit did this where they did like the chart of like the deadliest Tracer players, right?
Yeah.
And they did like total playtime on Tracer, and they had like all the teams ranked by like their main Tracer player and how much time they played Tracer, right? And I believe in stage 1 and 2, it was Munchkin who was the Dynasty's main Tracer player, and he had like a third of the Tracer playtime of like Sabiolbe and Striker.
Yeah,
right?
Oh, that's pretty. Yeah.
Like he just like wasn't playing him as Tracer, and sure, Munchkin was getting subbed out a lot more than the other guys, like people like Striker and Sabiolbe, but a third. And then the other thing is, then they did like the kills per 10 minutes and like the final blows on supports and enemy Tracers per 10 minutes and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like Munchkin was like, I think he was like right below middle of the pack.
Mm-hmm.
He was like 7th or 8th or something,
yeah.
Which is not what you want, given how just stupidly good Tracer is. And Tracer's in a position where it's like, okay, what map are you playing? What comp are you playing? And if you ask me, can I play Tracer with that? I go, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can play Tracer with anything. You want to play triple tank and you need a DPS to go with it? Play Tracer.
Yeah. Tracer's...
You want to play dive? Play Tracer. You want to play Widow or Soldier in the backline? Play Tracer with it. Like, you just can play Tracer because she is so good, and a star Tracer player makes so much happen.
Like, there's a reason Tracer is on the logo and Symmetra is not. Put it that way.
Yeah, like, yeah. And I think Blizzard, like... Blizzard's like, well, Tracer is our poster child for the game, so we're just never gonna nerf her.
Yeah,
like
I assume that's the case.
Yeah, and the thing, especially at a professional level, when you get a really good player in Tracer, the kit just gives her so much room to just like slaughter people.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why the Dynasty went into the season without like, here's our Tracer specialist, right?
Yeah.
And like they had Bunny, but then they like didn't play him.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, Bunny's like a legacy Tracer player. Like in Apex Season 1, we all thought he was a really good Tracer player, but really what it was is he just was really good at throwing pulse bombs into Graviton Surgeon.
Okay, yes.
And
That's a pretty good skill to have.
Because on BK Stars, in season 1 Apex, that's what made them so good was the fact that Bernard,
Yeah.
their Zarya player, was pretty good at Zarya, and he just farmed Graviton Surge, and Bunny just farmed Pulse Bomb, and he just threw Pulse Bomb into Gravs all day.
Yeah.
And they would just win maps by using like 3 or 4 Big Bang combos.
Yeah.
Like that's how they win maps. And it worked, dude. They got to the semifinals of the season, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were on the really weak side of the bracket, but they got playoffs, right? And that's what Bunny was amazing at.
Yeah.
Bunny farmed pulse bombs and used grabs. And he looks good in Valiant now. He really does. But he didn't quite stand up to what I think the Dynasty needed from him. And I think that number 1, main tank. Number 2, you get rid of.
Say it.
I don't know, actually. Oh, wait, do they have 11 players right now, actually?
Yeah, they have a shitload.
Zephyr, Munchkin, Fleta, Guido, Toby, Rajahong, Miro. Oh, they only have 11 players, so you just pick up a Tracer player.
Okay, yeah. Makes sense.
So, kick a main tank, pick a Tracer player. Done.
Yeah. And
then I think from there, you can start looking into, like, kind of a long-term, working on the team, right?
Yeah.
Because the other thing is, because they did so well early on in the season, they're still at first place in Pacific Division.
Yeah.
Only by 1 series.
I think they'll get overtaken if things keep going the way they are.
So the other thing is, for them, so they are at 16-8. Valiant is 15-9, and Gladiators are at 13-11.
Yeah.
So Gladiators are 3 series behind. I think they could make that up. Gladiators really could. But for Dynasty to fall out of the playoffs, the Shock has to catch up, or the Fury.
That's pretty unlikely.
And the Shock is at 8-16, so they're 8 series behind the Dynasty.
Yeah, that's too many. It's too many.
Yeah, so the Dynasty are not mathematically locked in for playoffs yet,
but they're close.
I think they're basically locked in for playoffs.
Yeah.
So I think you could do. I mean, it's too late now. The roster locks, the midseason signings are over. So I think they fucked this season. I think in the midseason they could have done a lot. Yeah. They could have done a lot better.
Typical Soul Dynasty, holding on to those past glories too long.
Yeah, I think they could have. I really do think they could have. They had a chance to improve this roster. I mean, hell, dude, like 2 players from 7, right?
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, take Bazzi, take Evo, take Runaways players, take Stitch and whatever his face is. I can't think of their main take right now for some reason. But like, there's players you could have taken, Korean players, right?
Yeah. So,
I don't know.
All right, so we're gonna skip most of the mid table, I think, unless there's something.
Well, we talked about a lot of them.
Yeah, we talked about all of them by incident.
We ended up.
So now let's talk about the trash of the league, and let's start with Dallas Fuel. I guess.
Isn't it funny though that people shit on the Fuel more than they do on the Mayhem, just by the fact that the Mayhem are like significantly worse in the standings?
Yeah, I think it's just because
Mayhem's map differential. I'm looking at it right now. Mayhem's map differential is -43.
It's pretty fucking terrible. Yeah.
To -28 for the Fuel.
I've wondered about that. I just think it's because like.
I think it's just what we wanted from the Fuel.
What you expected, because like everybody was saying like Fuel is probably going to be the best Western team going into it.
I think there were very few power rankings that didn't have the Fuel in the top 5.
Yeah.
That I saw. Mm-hmm. Most of them had Fuel at 4th.
Yeah.
So. Most people just had the 3 Korean rosters.
Yeah.
Like at the top, and then a lot of people had Fuel at 4th. Some had Fuel at 5th, and like, I don't know. I saw a couple like Outlaws at 4th and stuff.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, basically, this is one of the most disastrous teams I've ever seen in any game. Only outed by the team below them, but we'll talk about that one later. So,
well, the team below them is the Mayhem.
Yeah, and the team below, that's also true. But I'm actually not going to talk about the Mayhem. They're just like a very sad clown. Like,
yeah, but the Mayhem is also, they figured out that having 6 players is a bad idea.
Yes, they did figure that out.
They picked up 2 very good Koreans.
So they at least are figuring out what were their mistakes. Unlike the Dallas Fuel, even though they keep saying they are learning from their mistakes. So where do we begin with the Dallas Fuel, the team with the most team combinations, the team that can't figure out anything? It feels like.
I don't know. Where do you want to start?
It's a fucking mess, man. It's a fucking mess.
Dallas Fuel needs a new flex tank.
Yes.
Because so many fans have lunatic high syndrome, where they see Mickey as this wonderful diva player when he's not. Mickey is one of the worst D.Va players in the league right now.
Yeah, sure. But here's the problem.
I'm saying that purely off the eye test. I don't have numbers on it. They're probably out there. I don't know what they are.
No, here's the problem with that, though. Is like, yes, he might not be good. That's probably a true case for that.
There's so many other issues, yeah.
But he might be the only positively happy person in that entire roster, which usually doesn't matter, except this fucking roster has so many personality issues.
Yeah.
So actually, here's what I would do: is probably kick him off, but make him like an assistant coach or something, like a mental coach. Like, please be happy. It's like maybe that'll work. I'm not sure, but
I think you leave him on the roster. But this is because this is my personal philosophy on how Overwatch League teams should be run. Is I think you have 12 players on the roster. Just end of discussion. You have 12 players on the roster, but not you have 12 players and the London Spitfire way, where you're just like, fuck it, and just mix and match.
Mm-hmm.
You have 12 players on the roster, and you have a starting roster.
Yeah.
This is our A team. And you have a B team whose the B team's job is to, like, literally you go into scrims, and not all the time, because you can let the B team play against, like, maybe other Overwatch League teams if your B team's good enough, right? Maybe Contenders teams, you can let them scrim, right? But the B team, their primary job is to watch their counterpart on the A team and give feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And I see nothing wrong with that, right? And I think it opens up a lot of room to pick up very smart players who maybe aren't the most, mechanically gifted. And I also see that, like, in a couple years, maybe not a couple years, but like 3-4 years, when you get people start retiring, right? They don't want to be a full-time player. You can just put them on the roster, They can be that, like, position coach thing.
Why don't you just have a position coach instead of him on the roster, though?
Because then at least you have, I think you then at least have the sub, and it's better to sub in a very experienced veteran player, in my eyes, than it is to sub in a rookie player who's never played on the stage and doesn't get that much scrim time because he's just, like, on the bench, right?
Okay, all right.
Because in this world where you have a dedicated A roster that, like, even if the meta shifts, you still want to use this A roster and, like, teach them the new meta, not, like, bring in new players, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that world, I would rather sub in a veteran if something happens to my A roster. Than a rookie.
Okay.
And that's my opinion, at least. So,
all right. So back to the feel. Have you ever seen the movie Rashomon?
No.
Basically, it's an Akira Kurosawa movie, and the whole point of this particular movie is, like, it tells like a murder story, but it tells it from, like, the 3 or 4 perspectives of the different people that would witness it. Right?
Yes. Okay. I haven't seen it, but now that I see the movie poster, I recognize the movie poster. Yeah, and it's become like a literary device that people use.
Yes. So as far as I can tell, the Fuel are reenacting Rashomon, because what would happen is something goes wrong
through Twitter. They're reenacting it through Twitter and through Twitch clips.
Yeah. So what would happen is something would go wrong, and then you would get the true transparency. You would get, like, 4 different perspectives of what went wrong in that single moment. It's actually incredible.
Oh, no.
And listen, I made that joke about, like, man, Fleta, he has been stuck in new Flash Lux. But listen, Effect is probably in something even worse than what Flash Lux was. Because at least Flash Lux thought they were a team. This is not a team. This is, like, a bunch of individuals fighting. And, like, Effect is, like, the last man at the gate. Like, please, somebody help me. Please, anybody help me.
Trying to 1v11 on Tracer.
Like the only thing that fuels him now is rage. Like, oh, those motherfuckers thought I would lose to the Dragons.
So,
or whatever it was. Like,
in my personal opinion, without knowing anything behind the scenes really of the Fuel, the way that I see it, just from what I can see watching the game tape, Effect should be at 100% playtime.
Yes.
There's no question there. 100% playtime on Effect. And you have AKM Rascal for whatever you want to do, right?
Yeah.
AKM's Genji was actually pretty solid now from the couple maps he played it. I can't remember how often he played it, but I know he did play it. And I remember being, like, pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
But besides that, you have and obviously his soldier. You still play him for his soldier, and then Rascal for kind of whatever, right? Yeah. You need a Sombra player, you play Rascal. You need a Mei, play Rascal. You're gonna play triple tank, play Rascal. So I think those 3 is a really solid lineup. And in the weird event where Tracer does get, like, hard nerfed, you still have two flex players in AK and Rascal, right? But I think the DPS lineup is actually not that bad, right? Taimu's in there, and I'm not quite sure how you're supposed to use Taimu. I really don't know.
I think you have to kick Taimu at this point. It's not that I think he's a bad player necessarily. It's just like there's no room left.
There's just no room because I don't know what Taimu does better than any of the other DPS players.
Yeah, that's my entire problem with Taimu.
Besides, allegedly, Taimu is a very vocal, like, calm heavy shot calling DPS player.
But that doesn't really help in this particular case, does it? Like, if you just think about the way this team works,
maybe I think in a world where you don't play Mickey, it might, because then you lose a lot of comms.
Okay.
Because Chipsujin and Coco are kind of famously, known for being a little bit quieter in the game.
Yeah.
Unless AKM is turned around, we on EnVision trialed AKM for a while when he thought he was looking to be on a Contenders team, and he was pretty quiet when he played with us. So you might not get a whole lot from him. But I think it's not so much that Taimu's a bad player or anything. It's not because he's an asshole or anything. It's just I just don't know if he fits the system anymore.
Yeah,
and that's unfortunate because I love Taimu for like his legacy is what he is, right? And I think
just like Miro, except not as bad.
Yeah, except I still think Taimu's like pretty okay at the game, And like it sounds like I'm breaking up with Taimu, but it's like Taimu, you're gonna make another team very happy one day.
Just not our team.
just not the fuel. I think going into season 2, I would not be surprised to see that happen. Right. This Taimu ended up.
Oh, speaking of a player that should probably kick, it's probably Coco. Listen, I don't even know if Coco's good or not. It's just like they literally don't use him.
Yeah, it's.
They literally do not use him. So like, what's the point of keeping him here?
Yeah, I don't think Coco is necessarily bad. No, he's not bad. I know he's not bad, but OGE's pretty fucking nuts.
No, listen. Before OGE was even here, they didn't use Coco. Like that's my problem. It's like
no, I know. They used Taimu and Mickey as main tank over Coco.
Like that. So I think, what's the literal point of having Coco on this team if you're using those guys over him? Like.
Yeah, no, I don't know. And I think it was on Oversight that Custa said, like, he doesn't even think. And I will take Custa's word over basically anybody else's just because of the fact that he was on the team, that he doesn't think Coco's ever going to see play. So, yeah, Taimu and Coco, just because they don't fit the system, especially now that OGE is there, Coco definitely doesn't fit the system. I think the DPS line is actually pretty fine once you get those three, right? And if you use those three, I don't know. Actually, I totally forgot. I don't know where that lands Siegel, to be completely honest, either.
I think you may as well kick Siegel because I don't think he fits. He doesn't fit either side of the equation. Yeah. Like maybe you can use him as a flex. Maybe
you move him to you put it. I think you put, in my opinion, you put Siegel in the IDDQD spot of your roster, which is the full-time streamer.
Okay.
Because that's literally all IDDQD has done. Right?
Yeah.
Is been a full-time streamer. That's it. And like San Francisco Shock was like, I remember this because the Shock like had a couple of matches. I don't remember when, but it was like a week or two ago, and they had matches that week like on these dates, and they're like, yeah, IDDQD is going to be at like a signing session in like Washington DC or something.
Okay,
right? like not LA. They're like days and days and days before the match. They're like, yeah, no, IDDQD is not playing. They're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. That's pretty funny.
I think that's the slot that Siegel goes in. It's the full-time streamer slot.
Mm-hmm.
You need a new flex tank. And the other thing is, I don't think you kick Mickey because I would rather have a sub flex tank than not have one at all. So it's either you get 2 flex tanks or you just get a new one, right?
Yeah,
and Mickey goes on the bench. Because I don't really see a problem just in a general sense about having a sub, right?
Mm-hmm.
The support line, I think adding Unko was a smart move, because I think Unko fits a little bit better into the system than Custa did.
Yeah,
because Custa's role seemed really kind of weird, and it seemed like they weren't sure how to use him either. And I think Unko's kind of a more clear cut, like, here you are, we're gonna play you, you're gonna play your heroes, because like Custo was like all over the place with his hero pool, you know. They played Zen, he played Mercy, he played Moira, he played a whole bunch of stuff. So I think that's good, but I also think that they could maybe look. No, actually, you know what? I think with Unko in there, and I think once you figure out the flex tank situation, and maybe clean up some of the sub bench and give them time to figure it all out, I think that roster is actually pretty solid.
Yeah, so basically they have to do like 10 different things before I get.
I know. I love how we're like, yeah, all they have to do is like cut Taimu, cut like all they have to do is change half the roster, revamp the system, and then give them time. That's it.
Yeah, 10 different things.
Yes. At this point, I think Fuel is a season 2 team.
But listen, they did defeat Shanghai Dragons, and now we will go to one of the biggest stories of the league. Because listen, there are plenty of teams that have been all-time great teams. There are plenty of teams that have like shown something incredible. But there's only been one team that has ever gone to have such a terrible record and continues to improve on the excellence of failing. It is the Shanghai Dragons. And I wrote an entire article about this, about the 040 Dream, and they are right now currently standing at 024. So
I think my favorite part was your tweet where you're like, the Dragons are only like 2 more Korean players away from being a good team.
Yes, it's true.
And it was like the Dragons are only like, you're like, all the Dragons, basically what you're saying is all the Dragons need to do to be good is just have a Korean starter.
Yeah, everybody's Korean except Dia.
Yeah, Dia could say. So and on Damon, just joined the Dragons pretty recently. Damon was playing for NRG, and he played in North American Contenders, right?
Yeah.
And I will say, I can sum up how important Damon was to NRG in a few sentences, right? With Damon, NRG was doing all right. They were winning series, right? Damon leaves, and NRG drops 2 maps to bye week.
Damn.
They dropped 2 maps to bye week. Bye week was 4-0'd by every other team in the group, but NRG had to go to a tiebreaker.
Basically, bye week is the Dragons of NA Contenders, except not as exceptional as
yes, they are the Dragons of NA Contenders, except there was no expectations for them to not be.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we went in expecting bye week to be really bad. We didn't know how bad they were going to be. But, like, NRG dropped 2 maps without Damon. That's how important Damon was to them. And another tweet that I loved is Fazix, the main support of NRG, the shot caller of NRG, former EnVision player before I was with EnVision. But he tweeted, like, when the Dragons, like, tweeted, like, welcome Damon to the roster, right? Fazix just replied to that tweet with, like, I'm proud to have given Damon the last win of his Overwatch career.
God damn!
And it was like, oh, like, that was, oof. That was some straight fire.
That is pretty good.
It was a good fucking tweet. And who knows?
All right, so listen, everybody, you and I know the Dragons are bad, but like that
people want the Dragons to be good for really bizarre reasons. Like, the number one reason that the analyst desk, it seems like, wants the Dragon to be good is just because they're so bad. Like, in a very serious sense, it feels like people just want them to win because they need a win, like, not because they earned it or something, you know, like, just because, like, they just should win. It
just feels cruel, but I'm a person who enjoys it. I like watching them lose.
I do too.
It's just so funny to me.
And then now there's like the whole narrative about Giguri, right? Like, the first female player in the Overwatch League, and like, it's great, you know, like, she's the first female, but like, just because they hired a female player doesn't mean they like somehow deserve to win now, you know? And I don't know why they picked up Giguri. There are much better flex tanks. They're much better Korean flex tanks. Then
came Giguri, highly recommended.
Apparently
that's the interview. Basically, it's like everybody recommended Giguri to shoot Dragons. And here's the funniest thing though. If I was any of these teams, like, I don't actually know who recommended them to Dragons, but here's what I would do. If a rival team was supposedly asking me for advice on how to build their team,
like, yeah, just pick up.
I would. Listen, I don't actually think Kaguya's bad, but what I would do is I would tell them to get like a tank, that isn't like obviously terrible, basically, because like it seems plausible. But I want to tell them to get the best players. That's what I would do, personally speaking. But listen, at least I think we can both agree Kaguya is definitely an upgrade to what they did have.
Yes, but she was far from the best available option. Giguri, of course, is famous from the whole like beta thing where like people thought she was cheating.
Yeah, Zarya.
The whole Zarya thing, and it's like, wow, she has really good tracking. She must be cheating. And Zarya is a garbage hero because she can't move. Like she's just really bad. She's super map specific. Super map limited, and Blizzard has made it very clear that they are going to make maps that favor mobility.
Yes, the tracers on the logo. What do you want?
Yeah, like tracers on the logo. You know, Winston is like the poster child main tank over Reinhardt, and like they made D.Va. They buffed D.Va repeatedly and nerfed Zarya. Like I don't know, and Giguri was like famous for her Zarya. It's like cool, that's one thing, but D.Va's very different. And like, seriously, guys, when Giguri is on screen and when you are watching Giguri's POV, look at how insanely high her sense is.
Oh yeah, basically,
it looked like Alchemist tweeted that last night. He's like, Giguri's POV looks really jerky. He's like the observer PC must be lagging, and it's like no. Giguri just plays on like a stupidly high sense, and it just makes it like impossible for her to. It just makes everything so difficult. I swear to God. Like turning to like Matrix where you want it, and like the only thing it gives you is like she can 180 real fast. So like in theory she could like flick Matrix really fast, like eat a pulse bomb or something. But I don't even necessarily believe that she has like that kind of reaction. She's just like, whoop, you know. She was like an okay player on a team that like got 0-3'd.
Yeah, I remember
in Apex. Like the Rocks Orcas.
Yeah, basically like Wolf was like the sane man in a bunch of people, because basically to describe this, what everybody was saying was like dragons are going to beat the fuel or something, and then like the entire analyst desk.
The analyst desk picked. They
picked 3-0 for dragons, right?
That was so weird to me.
And listen,
and they were starting the full Korean roster, basically. The dragons were that had been in the country and like played together for like 3 days, 2 days.
Like it didn't make much sense, right? It's like, okay, whatever.
It blew my mind. That was ridiculous.
Because like even if say you did believe in these team and like the players on this team, like you said, like Damon's pretty good. Gaguri's an upgrade. You don't think she's the best,
and Otto is insane. Otto is so good.
And actually, Otto is actually another like Fleta type player in my opinion right now.
Yeah, kinda, yeah. And Otto is insanely good. And Damon fits right into the tracer spot that they need, and he is good, not great, right, in that role. I think he'll be and for the Dragons, this is all they need. I think Damon could be a middle of the pack tracer player.
Yeah.
But for the Dragons, that's like way better than what they had.
Yeah.
So like it works. And Otto, I think, could be an above average flex DPS. Great. That's just what the Dragons want. But then they pick up like, I don't know. And then Giguri and Fearless.
Still better than what they had.
Better than what they had, but they're still going to be... They're always, in my opinion, maybe not always, but for this season, they're going to be bottom of the table tank players.
Okay.
And that doesn't really improve all that much.
Of course, like their support line is pretty iffy.
Yeah, support line is real iffy.
Basically, I wasn't joking when I said they're 2 Korean support players away from being a good team.
You need Korean support players, or they should have just fucking hired the miraculous youngster players.
Aren't they all too young? Like, aren't they all literally too young?
The NY players?
Yeah, I think a lot of them are.
Maybe. I mean, now the team kind of like
disbanded.
A bunch of them retired.
Yeah, a bunch of them are out. Like the team disbanded. Like basically because they didn't get into Overwatch League, they're like, "Fuck it, we'll play PUBG."
Yeah, they might have been too young. Some of them I'm seeing are like 21 and stuff. But also, I'm gonna take a page out of Thorin's book. I know Thorin has said this many times. Chinese players have gotten fake birth certificates before.
Yes, they have.
Like,
yes, they have.
You know, the whole Chinese gymnastics Olympics thing. You know, that's really awful to say. And like, don't do that, please. Dragons, do not do that. But
playing fast and loose the rules.
Yeah, but I don't know. There were. I want to see a Chinese team in the league for the same reason that I want to see more actual European teams in the league, right? Where I think that there could be a playoff contenders Chinese team. There could have been.
Just like there could have been a playoff contenders French team.
Could have been a playoff contenders French team, maybe.
Like basically, when I say that though, I mean like they would start with Rogue and then they would build up on top of that.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like that makes it playoff contenders.
Yeah, and like in a perfect world, there could have been an all Western playoff contenders team with no Koreans, you know. But the talent got scattered, you know. But for the Chinese scene, it's not like the talent got scattered. They just didn't take any of it.
Yeah.
They didn't take the best of it. Because like the fact that like, you know, we get so many talented Western players on a lot of teams, it's gonna happen. You know, there's like a bunch of Western teams.
But there's only one Chinese team, and they've already abandoned China.
One Chinese team.
They have already abandoned China, so
yeah.
And here's the funny thing: is nobody actually knows that this is actually the right choice because nobody actually watches Chinese Overwatch, as far as I know.
It was a rare breed,
yeah,
to say the least.
Because you had to go through so many hoops just to get to it, so it's like,
yeah. I think the only people who I know, like 100% who watched it, were like Volumel, Sideshow, and me.
Yeah, and like nobody's watched it since, basically, because there's way too much shit to watch now.
Because I mean, now there's, as far as I know, there's not a whole lot going on.
And as far as we know, probably Dragons don't even watch it either, considering they only got Korean players. So
yeah, but yeah,
you know what's even weirder about this entire situation is I think they should go all Korean, but they're having their Korean players learn Chinese.
Yeah,
and majority of their team they field is Korean. Like, does that make sense to you? It doesn't make sense to me. Okay, yeah, so basically nobody... I'll go ahead and say it probably doesn't make much sense to you, considering majority of their players they field in the A squad are Korean. So wouldn't it make sense for the 2 players to learn Korean instead of the 4 players to learn Chinese?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even just basic, right? You don't actually have to be fluent in any way. You can have translators for out of the game, but just like establish the names of the heroes and like literally like look at a top-down map of each like map that you have to play and be like, this is what we're calling this, right? This is what we're calling this. This is what we're calling this, you know, for location callouts, mm-hmm. right? And just be like, done. And you can just call like, this person's here, go. Yeah. Like, done. That's simple enough. And I think you could.
Whereas like in Chinese, they're like, you have to get the exact tone right because there's 5 different tones for each character. So you're kind of fucked. Yeah. You are kind of fucked. So yes. Here's my question though for Shanghai Dragons: is the 040 dream unrealistic? Can it be done? Can the Shanghai Dragons do the undoable? Can they clutch? Can they clutch defeat from the jaws of victory 16 times?
Who do they play in stage 4? Because if they play the Fuel in stage 4 again, they might have a chance.
Oh yeah, because I completely forget like just the way that works. Like you don't necessarily play the same teams.
Yeah, they play the Fuel in their first day of stage 4.
So that's the final day. That's
Yeah, so they play the Fuel in the first day of stage 4, and they play the Shock on the last day of stage 4.
Well, I don't think the Shock are that bad.
And the Shocker are going to improve too.
Because listen, everybody else is like, "Oh man, the Dragons they did so well against Shock," and I'm just sitting here thinking, "Wait, wasn't like Super a very critical player for the San Francisco Shock?"
Super's a critical player. This is also the meta for Shock because Dante was like one of the only Sombra players, and it's like it's Sombra meta, and it's a DPS playing Sombra, so Dante's just like, thank you, Jeff. Like I can play the like despite the fact that we have Sinatra now, I can still play the game.
Yeah.
Like, but I think the more realistically, the matches that have the potential are the Dragons are going to play Mayhem, although the Mayhem will probably take that. They're looking a lot better, but that is in theory a chance. But that is next week, so I don't know if they're going to have the time for that. And then the Fuel, basically.
Yes,
in stage 4. And then that
listen, I already have the plan set up for that one, though, because I'm going to have the analysts all predict Dragons 1, 2, 3 in front of FX face, and the effect will rage the fuck out and win again.
Oh, boy. Dragons, who else do they play in stage 4?
Doesn't matter who else they play, because it's literally just Mayhem or Fuel, I think.
Yeah, and even the Mayhem probably aren't likely now because the Mayhem are looking
better,
a lot better.
Yeah.
Crazy idea. Picking up Saya player was a good idea.
Right,
it's almost like somebody should have done that going into the season. Yeah, no, I don't. I think the 040 dream is very much attainable.
Yeah, I think victory will be on my side. Listen, they had 20 chances to prove me wrong. They had 20 chances. They still have a lot of. They still have. Listen, they can hit and miss 20 times. I had to hit every single time.
They have 16 matches left.
Yeah.
To try and prove you wrong.
And basically, the funny and sad thing about Dragons is like if I actually was forced to do a serious like article about the Dragons, I'd be like, listen, they are literally like anti-competition in a sense because there are better teams in Contenders, and so like they are kind of like messing up the league. So
yeah, I don't know if there's better. I haven't been watching Contenders China.
Like nobody's been watching. I'm just saying the 2 Contenders we know of, NA and Korea, have better teams, right?
Well, even Europe has better teams.
Europe has better teams.
I haven't watched a ton of Europe, but I have watched some of the matches of the top teams. And there's better European teams.
Yeah, so like, so I'm just saying like, even though I'm making this a joke, like imagine you're one of those teams, you're like, what the fuck is going on? Like you could just watch what wins his Twitter's like, man, I should have been in there. Fuck this. Fuck everything.
Yeah, wins his Twitter. Yeah, and I think this sounds like it's a Thorn tweet. I think it was a Thorn tweet if I remember right.
Yeah.
Where Thorn just said like the Dragons being in the league kind of devalues the whole league.
Yeah, it does.
Because it's like what's
like basically like what's the point? Like oh wow.
Well, like what is the point of playing this team? Literally. Like what is the purpose?
Like the funniest thing is like you can put any bad team and they'd still have the same record. That's the funny thing. Any bad team in the world. From any skill level, they'd have the same record.
Yeah.
So that's kind of dark. That's kind of how dark it is for the Dragons. So my 040 dream is still on.
I just think that like even if you were to put like a Contenders team in, just straight in, I still think that the Contenders team would lose a vast majority of the series, but they might be able to take some upsets against stuff like the Fuel, right? Maybe the Mayhem earlier in the season, right? Mm-hmm. But at the very least,
maybe Shock without Super. Who knows?
Maybe Shock without Super. Maybe Shock without Sinatra. But at the very least, there are tons and tons and tons of teams from Contenders, both Korea, NA, EU, that their map differential would not be -77.
They
would play much
sick.
Closer series, right?
Yeah, that's pretty sick.
And yeah.
All right. So I think that about ends it because we've gone over the entire thing, and I think you have to go in like 30 minutes or something. Not exactly.
No, we got pushed back. We just scrim canceled on us, so I'm good.
Okay, that's fine then. Well, did you want to talk about the Dragons for like another 2 hours? I think we've gone through. You've gone through this mockery of a team so far.
I think we're pretty good. I think we pretty much touched on every team besides. Oh no, we did touch on every team.
Yeah, basically. A little bit. Yeah. So, do you have any final shout-outs? Anything else you want to say?
I don't know. Not really.
All right, and I will give a shout-out to the American Revolution. All right, see you guys later.